The Age of the Mecha, Fists That Shatter Stars. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 376 Judgment. About 10 minutes later, Liu quickly arrived at the estimated location of the battle group. Following the traces, he came to a floating island that was about the size of a small starship. There was no one there. Judging from the surrounding frost, countless water vapor, residual electric light, and messy ground, there must have been a war here. This floating island is very close to the Guotao Divine Mountain. From where Liu stood, it was difficult to look across the entire Guotao Divine Mountain and see the whole picture. The distance was only a few thousand kilometers away. At his current flying speed, thousands of kilometers can be crossed quickly. Liu quickly observed the surroundings. 4 people fought and fled, chasing Xingyu to the Guotao Divine Mountain. He quickly judged the original situation and reproduced the battle at that time in his mind. Judging from the traces of the battle in the surrounding area, Xingyu did not make many moves and basically fled. Among them, Xingyu was detained on this floating island for a few minutes by Qin Longquan and Lu Yansheng and Zhao He, who caught up first. The 3 surrounded Xingyu and caused some damage to him. After that, Xingyu maneuvered for a while and actually found a chance to escape from the 3-person encirclement. It seems that they are not here for the time being because they are chasing Xingyu, and they are even trapped in a trap. In addition, it is also strange that Tan Yaozu's battle traces did not appear here. Liu thought that maybe this guy Lao Tan came late and met them at another location. But in the end, the probability of them being together is not low. While thinking, Liu squatted down, pinched some floating green blood with his fingers, and used the nanosensor to sense its internal situation. This blood is mostly from Xingyu. I don't know how Xingyu recovered his combat power. It's really difficult. Next, he plans to record Xingyu's genetic information. The last time Xingyu was captured, humans also extracted his genetic information. By comparing the changes in genetic information twice, perhaps we can figure out why he can recover his combat power. He has no need to fight or switch perspectives quickly at the moment, so the nanosensor is directly activated to 1 nanometer accuracy to slowly record Xingyu's genetic information. When using the bodybuilding method or in combat scenes, the reason why only 80 nanometers of microscopic perception can be used is purely because the brain cannot keep up with the speed of receiving information. If you actively slow down the recording rhythm and advance it slowly, you can naturally achieve information recording with 1 nanometer precision. Normally, conventional genetic information is at this level. With his natural replica level memory, it is not difficult to record these genetic information. This is also the reason why he dared to drastically deform the structure of He Guangxi's head before. Because his dream plane can record everything he has seen and experienced at a high intensity and check it at any time. Even if Lao He's genetic sample is contaminated, he has the confidence to find it back in his memory. 3 minutes later, Liu, who had completed the recording, quickly leaped forward. Since they all went to the Enlightenment Mountain, let's go and take a look. At the same time, in a dark cave with no light. Damn, how can this Xingyu run so fast? Lu Yansheng spat. Stop talking nonsense and think more about how to escape from this maze, Zhao He sighed. Qin Longquan didn't say anything. He hit the wall with a bang. The whole cave shook, but he didn't break through any wall. There was no damage to the wall. Qin Longquan pondered and said, no, this wall can perfectly absorb any force and channel it into the entire maze. It is equivalent to a living maze that can exert force like flowing water. If you want to break through the wall, I guess even a demigod can't do it. Fuck, even you, Lao Qin, can't do it. What should we do? Will we miss our strategy plan against the Star Clan? Lu Yansheng frowned and patted the wall, speechlessly saying, fortunately, Lao Tan and Liu haven't come in yet. If they come in rashly, our wave will be equivalent to wiping out 4 Supremas in 2 top-level heavenly positions. What a pity. Since I, Lu Yansheng, was promoted to Supreme, I haven't shown my skills and killed an alien Supreme. Pew, 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 Lao Lu, what nonsense are you talking about? We are still alive and may not be unable to escape. Zhao He slapped him. Lu Yansheng dodged. The problem is that this entrance disappears as soon as we enter. We have been walking for so long, but we are still going in circles. How can we break the deadlock? If time goes on for too long, even if we can still survive by relying on our ship-like ability, the outside world will have already been seriously lacking in combat power due to our disappearance, and will eventually collapse. Right. Although Lu Yansheng's words were straightforward, they were indeed a point of concern for several people. Even Qin Longquan, who had rich experience in exploring the Enlightenment Mountain, encountered a maze of this difficulty for the first time. In addition to the divine suppression, there was also 80 times the gravity suppression. And there was not a single bit of light. Even with the eyesight of everyone, they could not see it at all. The ability to sense teammates depends entirely on hearing, or some small characteristics that come with a perception ability, such as microelectric perception. Qin Longquan said, "It's come to this, we can only keep going. The three of us have the ability to survive as a ship. If it really doesn't work, we can still fight a protracted war. If you are really worried about the problems caused by our long-term disappearance, then try to find a way out. Also, we must trust our teammates, trust Lao Lin, and trust Duanmu, at the very least, with their methods. They should know how to cover up the news of our disappearance." As he said that, he patted the two men on the shoulders and signaled them to start walking. Lu Yansheng immediately followed and said, "Lao Qin, you said that you fought Heng Suer for so long, how come it was so difficult to keep him?" Zhao He was speechless. Lao Lu was really mean. Fortunately, Lao Qin knew that this was not the time to lose his temper. If it were his normal time, he would have punched Lao Lu hard. Qin Longquan glanced at Lu Yansheng and said lightly, "Didn't you see it all? Heng Suer has mastered the means of turning into lightning, which is comparable to that of a demigod. He can leave whenever he wants. With our current encirclement strength, as long as he pays some price, we can't stop him at all." Zhao He coughed lightly and said, "At this point, it's useless for us to talk about Heng Suer. Why don't we think about how to get out?" As they were talking, Qin Longquan and Zhao He were suddenly startled. What's going on? How come Lao Lu disappeared while walking? Where did the script voice go? Did this trigger the silent area? But Lao Lu didn't mention the corresponding keywords, right? Moreover, although this place suppresses the divinity and physical strength, the mental repression common in the silent area has never been felt. "Lao Lu, if you are there, call back," Zhao He said, tentatively reaching forward, but only grabbed Qin Longquan's shoulder. Chapter 377 Special. After stepping over the last floating island, Li Yu finally approached the Guotao mountain. He only needed to fly a few hundred kilometers to get close to its surface. Looking at such a majestic and huge creation from such a distance, you can't see its edge when you look up, and you can't see its bottom when you look down. The dark and rough geology. And the plain that looks smooth but is actually full of all kinds of small bumps and spots. At first glance, there is no entrance around the Guotao mountain. This huge mountain that can almost be compared to a star is presented in front of him. The magical thing is that he didn't feel any gravity when he was so close to this huge mountain. It seems that the essence of the Guotao mountain does not exist in the world, but is a special existence like a soul. No wonder it was filled with divine will just now. Li Yu observed for a long time, and was more and more shocked by the various characteristics of the Guotao mountain. Moreover, he still had a little doubt. He only found the traces left by Tan Yaozu's flight. As for Qin Longquan, Lu Yansheng, and Zhao He, they stopped abruptly in front. It seems that they suddenly entered a space channel, or all traces of activities have been erased. Moreover, the traces of Heng Suer's activities are more subtle. It seems that he disappeared from the surface of Guotao mountain just like Qin Longquan and others, but in fact, there are traces of his activities around. Could it be that Heng Suer is very familiar with this place and led these three opponents into a trap, while he escaped? If so, the situation will be troublesome. Li Yu's heart sank slightly. Although Heng Suer will suffer a lot of losses and may even be injured when facing the siege of Qin Longquan and the other three. But if this guy is still wandering around, then Li Yu is wandering here alone, the situation will be serious. In terms of strength, he should not be able to fight with the top strongest at present. If he also controls the divine Mecha, with his own means, he can resist a little, and even have the chance to kill. But in this state, it is a lot worse. According to Li Yu's estimation, there should be 2 or 3 small grades of strength difference between the strongest. Let's find Old Tan first. With the combined efforts of 2 people, we can stabilize the situation to some extent. With a slight movement in his heart, Li Yu's body flashed and followed the traces of Tan Yaozu's activities. He was not in a hurry to continue looking for Qin Longquan and others. First of all, he couldn't figure out how they disappeared for the time being. Secondly, he didn't have the strength to crush everything. If he acted rashly, he would only bury himself. The traces here have become much more obvious. While observing, Li Yu raised his eyebrows and found more trace information. Immediately, he carried the frozen body of Yi Guangzi on his shoulders and began to speed up. Half an hour later, Li Yu found Tan Yaozu running wildly on the Wudao mountain. When he saw him, Li Yu was stunned for a moment. Why did old Tan keep running on this Wudao mountain? There was no one chasing him from behind? But when he observed a few more times, he became serious. It seemed that Tan Yaozu's running wildly was not his own intention, but was chased by something invisible to the naked eye. His heart moved, and he immediately sent a message, "Brother Tan, what is chasing you?" Tan Yaozu ran wildly. Looked up and saw Li Yu floating thousands of meters away. His face changed wildly, and he shouted, "Don't get close to here. Once you get close to here, you can't fly away." The suppression force on the surface of this martial arts mountain may not seem strong from the outside, but once you get close to the range of 900 meters, you will be sucked in immediately. Once you float in the air, your soul will be attacked. Not only can you not fly away, but all your divinity and characteristics are completely suppressed, and you can't even use them a little bit. I've been hit. Don't come down to wade in this muddy water. Don't worry about me. I can deal with the soul chasing me behind me. Li Yu frowned. It seems that the situation of this Wudao mountain is more complicated than he thought at first. Why is this entrance to the moon so different from other entrances? Moreover, looking at Old Tan, it doesn't look like it can be easily solved. After observing for a moment, Li Yu simply activated the lightning characteristics and aimed at the back of Tan Yaozu. Among the characteristics he has mastered so far, only the lightning characteristic may cause damage to the soul. Flame characteristics are also possible, but the activation speed is not as fast as the lightning characteristic. Although it is something that cannot be seen by the naked eye, it is possible to roughly determine its position based on some small fluctuations in the outside world. However, he is a little far away now, and if he wants to hit it with one shot, the probability is not high. After thinking about it, Li Yu moved closer and came to a height of more than 2,000 meters. Although Lao Tan said 900 meters, this distance may vary from person to person, so for safety, he still maintained a certain height. At this distance, with the activation speed of the lightning characteristic, at a distance of 2 or 3,000 meters, even if the influence of space viscosity on the transmission of lightning force is excluded, it only takes one hand to hit the opponent. In terms of speed, the conventional lightning speed is faster than the divine energy cannon. However, the lethality of lightning in mecha battles is far less than that of the divine energy cannon, so even for mechas of the Thor sequence, most of the long-range big moves are divine energy cannons with lightning characteristics. But now the opponent is just a soul, and there is no flesh attached, so the situation is simple. All he had to do was predict the opponent's route and aim at the position. After staring for a moment, the energy ball in his palm that was transformed into lightning flashed in an instant, turning into a shocking thunderbolt and shooting out instantly. Crackling. With a loud noise, Tan Yaozu only felt a bright flash of lightning in the sky, and the ground behind him shook slightly. Immediately afterwards, the soul that seemed to be a deadly threat seemed to be traumatized, roared at the soul level, and retreated. Tan Yaozu did not have the ability to observe souls, but his coordination characteristics could judge the impact of the soul's existence on the present world, and thus judged that there was a soul chasing him. He had fallen into this place for a while, and naturally understood that he could not use his characteristics and divinity to the outside world, and his resistance to soul invasion had also fallen to the lowest. At this moment, sensing the weakening soul behind him, Tan Yaozu was undoubtedly relieved. "Thank you, Li Yi. I didn't expect you to have such a skill, to be able to accurately determine the location of the soul from such a long distance, Brother Tan. Although this soul is injured, it seems that its strength is still there. Don't take it lightly, don't worry, I was just caught off guard just now." But now, before Tan Yaozu finished speaking, his face suddenly changed, and he suddenly started running again. Because at that moment, he sensed that with the roar of this soul, more and more souls seemed to follow the sound. If he didn't run it this time, would he wait for his body to be snatched away by these souls? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 378, Interception. How can there be so many souls in this Guotao mountain? Li Yu was slightly surprised when he sensed that there were more than 10 soul traces on the surface of Guotao mountain, surrounding the direction where Tanyaozu was running. Oh my god, could it be because of the special existence of Guotao mountain? At the same time, not only Tanyaozu had problems, but Li Yu also noticed something wrong. A completely different spatial vibration came from a distance. This was the vibration that accelerated the tearing of the sticky space. Since Ken Longchuan and others were sealed, who else could have this possibility at this moment? It was Hangser. Could it be that this guy noticed the movement and came to kill him? As soon as he thought of this, he felt a fierce thunder and lightning divine will suddenly appear and kill him from a distance. In just a millisecond, it broke through the sticky sky and came in front of him in an instant. From this thunder and lightning divine will, a fist suddenly stretched out and hit him, with an amazing speed. In a hurry, Li Yu's subtle power burst out and raised his hand to receive it. Boom! Amidst a loud noise, lightning entered Li Yu's body, paralyzing his whole body. At the same time, he used his subtle strength to fly backwards. At the moment when lightning entered his body, he simultaneously activated his crude version of the Thunder Forging method, part of which was forging the body and part of which was charging energy. He easily resolved the attack. This made Li Yu feel strange. What happened? This Hangser suddenly came to kill him. He was obviously very powerful, but at this moment, he was so weak. Was he intentionally holding back, or was Hangser himself exhausted? Just as he was thinking this, the lightning transformed by Hangser flashed again, chased after him, and hit Li Yu with a loud punch. Li Yu raised his hand to block again. Bang! This attack was more powerful, carrying a fierce and cruel thunder and lightning divine will, which was completely opposite to the power of the previous move and was very powerful. Before Li Yu's doubts were dispelled, Hangser suddenly opened a big move. With a loud bang, Li Yu's body retreated again. He was electrocuted by the lightning characteristics of the divine will, and his body was paralyzed. He was even out of control for a while. As his body flew back, subtle strength burst out from deep inside his body, and with a sudden shock, the paralysis in various parts of his body was dispersed. Not only that, his body also accompanied the deformation characteristics, rapidly changing the structure of various parts of his body, accompanied by subtle tremors all over his body, and suddenly the lightning divine will that could weaken his vitality was quickly dissolved by the Thunder Forging method and absorbed into the cells of his body. Although this wave of lightning divine will is strong and has amazing lethality, the total amount is not too large. If he didn't have the Thunder Forging method, he might be paralyzed instantly, and remain stiff for at least a few minutes. But at this moment, he only injured some cells, so he absorbed it immediately, and then used the powerful vitality brought by the immortal divine gene to successfully exempt himself from the ferocity brought by this fierce move. Although the whole process is complicated, it only happens in milliseconds, which is very amazing. After dissolving the lightning divine will, his divinity burst out at the same time outside his body, and the flame suddenly flashed, giving out thrust. Swoosh! He stabilized his body and stopped falling towards Guotao mountain. During these two retreats, Li Yu was already very close to Guotao mountain. If he was close to the 900-meter range, like Tanyaozu, he would be suppressed on the surface of Guotao, and he would be attacked from both sides, with no power to fight back. From Hangser's two attacks, this guy obviously knew the situation of suppressing strength on Guotao mountain. Otherwise, he wouldn't have hit Li Yu vertically in the direction of Guotao's body with two consecutive attacks. Hangser saw that Li Yu had resolved his moves again, and he made a clear exclamation. His slightly narrowed eyes, and his pupils obviously shook a few times, as if he didn't believe his own judgment. Micro-level fighting skills, this is the common language of aliens. He didn't expect Li Yu to have such a trick, and even his lightning characteristics with the essence of God's will could be resolved in this way. The first move could be said to be that he deliberately let the enemy relax his vigilance, but the second move was so fierce and carried the power of God's will, which was completely different. You know, the difference between the two people's power and divinity is huge. A mere heavenly position can actually have such a gift. I can't let you stay. Hangser was shocked by Li Yi's subtle power, And Li Yu was also surprised by Heng Suo's strength. This guy, compared with a weak situation in Henshin prison before, is so different. He is indeed a character who can endure. In the face of adverse situations, he can actually escape from the encirclement of several A-level high-level mechas, and reshape his body in more than 10 days to restore his peak combat power. Although it is not clear how Heng Suo did it for the time being. But Li Yu understands that Heng Suo's pure combat power is probably stronger than Qin Longquan. At the beginning, this guy was able to hold on for several minutes under the encirclement of 5 supreme powers and 2 heavenly high levels. Li Yu knew that Heng Suo's strength was by no means ordinary. But such a peak performance did exceed Li Yu's initial judgment. Judging from the changing rhythm of the battle, Li Yu immediately understood that Heng Suo was definitely a master who had experienced hundreds of battles and had a high understanding of the rhythm of the battle. A random change in the speed of the rhythm caught him off guard. This is definitely a master who is as powerful as flowing water. Li Yu has not seen anyone who has reached the state of power like flowing water among human strongmen, but he did not expect to see someone who has reached such a state in the Star Clan. This guy can control most of the power of the Star Clan, and his position is only below the ancestor of the Star Clan. It can be seen that he is indeed valuable. However, facing such a master, Tanyaozu can't help for the time being. How to break the situation? Without hesitation, Li Yu launched the 2.0 brain super lifting technique and the 3.2 burst technique. And 50 nanometers microscopic perception. Not 60 nanometers, but 50 nanometers. After these few thunder forgings, the body and brain have been strengthened, and there is room for further improvement. He decided to take a risk and try. Boom. The blood in the body flows at a high speed under the exquisite control of his various characteristics. The whole body quickly started to move. It's done. Before he had time to be happy, Heng Suo noticed that Li Yu was exploding. His body flashed again, turning into lightning, and suddenly flashed from 1,000 meters away. Whoosh! In the flash of thunder, Li Yu's body suddenly moved to the side, narrowly avoiding Heng Suo's punch. But then, Heng Suo hit him with another punch, as if he had predicted Li Yu's reaction and hid him in advance. Heng Suo's attack speed was very fast, faster than all the masters Li Yu had seen, and it was crushingly fast. Faced with such a swift attack, Li Yu had little room to move, and raise his hand to block again. Bang! This time, the Thunder God's divine will was obviously more powerful. Li Yu didn't even have the spare energy to retreat his body to dissipate the impact, and he saw Heng Suo's other punch already appeared in front of him. The speed unexpectedly became even faster. Chapter 379 Target. Li Yu was about to catch the punch with his face. At this moment, Li Yu's explosive skills finally completed the coordination of the whole body. At the critical moment, the deformation and super-elastic characteristics were activated, and the face suddenly deformed, forming a hollow ring. Swoosh! The fist carrying the amazing power of divine will passed through the center of Li Yu's deformed face and hit the air directly. He originally expected that Li Yu would be hit directly by this punch. This punch was extremely condensed, and there was no extra divine will released. It also did not hurt Li Yu with divine will. If he used the conventional fighting method to disperse the divine will at will, even if Li Yu could avoid this blow, other parts of his body would inevitably be eroded by the thunder and lightning divine will, causing paralysis of the body, creating more space for Heng Suo to attack. Li Yu's response was just right. At the same time, after avoiding Heng Suo's inevitable blow, Li Yu also gained ample time to adjust to his state, and his body jumped back violently. Swoosh! When he jumped back, he activated the special characteristics at the same time, dissolving the extremely sticky space in front of him, and his body dodged instantly and flew away. It turned into a white line and crossed 1,000 meters in an instant. Li Yu knew that even if he had already taken out his strongest state and had a higher level of subtle fighting skills, his total divinity was still only equivalent to the 6th stage of the heavenly position, and he could not fight for a long time. In addition, he had already consumed a lot before, and facing Heng Suo in such a peak state, the chance of winning was too low. Heng Suo crushed him with just an amazing speed and the ability to use divine will. In addition to the strongest tricks he had not yet used, you can imagine how strong this guy is. Guerrilla warfare must be used. In a short moment, Li Yu had formulated a sufficient battle plan in his mind. Heng Suo narrowed his eyes slightly, and seeing Li Yu flying decisively, he did not hesitate. His body turned into lightning, and suddenly flashed, also dissolving the stickiness of space and chasing after him. Obviously, his lightning characteristics have also reached a conceptual level and can have an impact on time and space. Crack! This thunderbolt flew suddenly, crossing a distance of several thousand meters in an instant, reaching out and grabbing towards Li Yi's shoulder. On the shoulder was the physical body of He Guang that Li Yi had been carrying. Li Yi's face changed slightly. Heng Su'er was fast, not to mention that he actually had such a strong positioning ability. At such a distance, he could actually come over accurately in a flash. You know, Li Yi had just used his own subtle means to smooth out the traces around him, and made a zigzag confusing movement while flying. If it were any other powerful person, it would probably be impossible to catch up with Li Yi immediately. Snap! Heng Su'er had already grabbed Li Guang's physical body with a slap. Get out! Li Yi's subtle strength was stimulated from deep inside his body, and his body shook. He carried the freezing power that already had conceptual characteristics and hit through He Guang's physical body. Bang! Heng Su'er's palm was directly penetrated by the subtle force of shock, and the freezing force instantly raged in his body. And the lightning on his palm froze slightly. This is exactly the skill of Li Yi's use of the shock-penetrating ice fist. Using the subtle force of 50 nanometers to directly bypass Heng Su'er's hastily erected divine protection, the effect is much more amazing than Li Yi initially expected. At the same time, Li Yi seized the opportunity, kicked up suddenly, and hit Heng Su'er's forehead. Bang! Heng Su'er's left hand firmly blocked the kick, and with a finger stretched out, he was about to grab Li Yi's foot and burst out the lightning characteristics. Li Yi had expected it long ago, and took a step forward, and the divine flames outside his body suddenly sprayed towards Heng Su'er, and with the force of shock, his body flashed again, and it had turned into a white line, spanning 1,000 meters, and continued to flee. At present, Heng Su'er's means have not been thoroughly explored, and Li Yi still chose to continue to dodge. On the one hand, he confirmed the rest of Heng Su'er's methods, and on the other hand, he also used Heng Su'er's lightning characteristics to continue to forge his body and charge. The longer the time, the more perfect his lightning forging method will be, and the higher the winning rate will be. Heng Su'er shook his hand and used the lightning characteristics to dissolve the freeze in his arm, frowning. Such a strong concept characteristic, moreover, it is so troublesome to dissolve the subtle strength combined with the concept characteristic. It is far from the strength that a human heavenly position can have. This kind of gifted genius must be killed. With a flash of thought in his mind, Heng Su'er observed for a moment, and his body turned into lightning again and chased after him. Whoosh! Li Yi had already run thousands of meters away and was close to the floating island. Realizing that Heng Su'er was chasing him at an astonishing speed, he immediately activated the gravity characteristics and pulled himself to fly to the floating island in front. Since the hard power is not as good, then use the terrain to deal with the floating island. The suppression force on the floating island is stronger. Under the same circumstances, Li Yi can play the advantages of the physical body. Although his physical body is still not as good as Heng Su'er, his overall level is naturally much higher than the current limited amount of divinity. With his fighting skills being one level higher than his, he has a better chance of turning the tables. Although the suppression power of Guotao Mountain is stronger, considering that it will not be easy to leave later, his first destination is the floating island with the strongest suppression power in the surrounding area. This floating island is about half the size of the Starry Sky main ship, very large, like a small mountain, very majestic. During Li Yi's flight, the characteristics of lightning and thunder were stimulated around his body, turning into groups of violent ball lightning, blocking the direction of Heng Su'er's pursuit. In the brief fight with Heng Su'er, Li Yi has already learned a lot about Heng Su'er's lightning and thunder characteristics, and knows that Heng Su'er's lightning and thunder characteristics are not consistent with the common characteristics of the thunder god sequence of humans. It is this inconsistency that can hinder his speed more than space viscosity. At the same time, after Li Yi released a ball lightning, he no longer flew in a zigzag shape, but flew straight to the floating island in front. As long as he reaches this floating island, his chance of winning will be even higher. And if Heng Su'er is not going to catch up and is only going to attack him from a distance, he will have enough time to recover his strength. During the chase, the lightning transformed by Heng Su'er was indeed disturbed by the ball lightning released by Li Yi, and its speed was slightly slowed down and its direction was also slightly offset. He narrowed his eyes, raised his hand and shook it, shaking off the ball lightning, and continued to accelerate. Want to use the suppression force of the floating island? Oh, even if it can be suppressed, so what? Whoosh! The lightning transformed by Xingyu suddenly flew behind Li Yi and punched him hard from the side. However, my principle is that the more the enemy wants, the less I can give it. The direction of this punch was to hit Li Yi in other directions. He knew that Li Yi's means were enough to deal with his regular punches and kicks, so he didn't show any mercy at all. When the power reached him, it reached the limit of his physical fist power. Boom! Li Yi raised his hand and caught it, and his body shook, as if he was about to be taken away by this huge force, away from his target floating island. Chapter 380 Suppression. Li Yi was hit directly by this punch filled with thunder and lightning, and his body suddenly shifted to the side. However, just as his body just shifted out, the subtle force in his body shook again. This subtle force, which has reached a precision of 50 nanometers, suddenly started to split the violent divine will that hit his body in one breath. One part was used to forge the body, one part was used to charge cells, and the other part was forcibly changed by him with the force of flowing water. This direction suddenly changed to one side, and he rushed forward as if he had added a layer of acceleration thrusters behind him. Whoosh! Under Xingyu's surprised eyes, Li Yi's body suddenly approached the main ship-sized floating island and fell to the ground with a bang. Bang! He hit the ground with his head and feet, raising clouds of dust. In this process, part of his body was paralyzed, and he only stood as steady as a mountain by relying on his well-trained fighting instinct. Although Xingyu's lightning divine will was powerful this time, Li Yi became more and more adept at it after resolving it many times. After a while, he completed a round of bodybuilding and cell charging. Faintly, he felt that his body was full and he was about to break through to the strongest physical body. Just a little bit more, a little more, the desire to become stronger filled his heart. Li Yi looked up at Xingyu who was hovering in the air, his eyes emitting a green and fierce light. I want it so much. Xingyu, is this all you can do? Your divine will moves, when hitting me, are almost like tickling. Li Yi opened his mouth to provoke. Now that he is on the floating island, his chance of winning has been greatly improved. But if Xingyu only launches long-range attacks in the air, the battle will still be very tense. Only by luring him to the floating island can he have a chance to take this guy down. Hearing this, Xingyu's eyes narrowed slightly. Then, he raised his hand and rubbed out two lightning bolts, which suddenly smashed down. Crackling, boom. Two huge lightning bolts as thick as millstones directly struck Li Yi, making a loud noise. The ground was also covered with white smoke and a mess. What just struck was just an afterimage. Xingyu frowned. Yes, that's right. Li Yi's voice came from the other side of the floating island. There are two layers of heaven and earth inside and outside the floating island. Even if you can aim at me, you are aiming at the refracted me. Boom. Another thunderbolt shot down, but it only struck the ground, not the source of the sound. Xingyu narrowed his eyes. What kind of means is this? How did he do it? Refraction? There is obviously no trace of the use of divine characteristics. Is it another use of subtle means? In his observation, he could clearly see Li Yi's existence. Moreover, the opponent did not predict and leave at the moment of lightning, but really confused his judgment. It seems that this celestial position should have found some means to exploit the loopholes of the floating island. Since he would be confused outside, then what about bowing down and joining the game? After thinking for a moment, Xingyu's body slowly fell down and landed on the floating island. When he landed, the divinity outside Xingyu's body suddenly exploded, and countless lightning gods were driven by various subtle arcs and wandered around the entire floating island. In the blink of an eye, he clearly felt the presence of Li Yi. That was, in the west. Whoosh! After determining Li Yi's position, Xingyu's body turned into thunder and shot again. In the blink of an eye, he suddenly appeared on the other side of the floating island and came in front of Li Yi. At this moment, a layer of light like water droplets was suspended outside Li Yi's body, which cleverly blended him with the surrounding environment into the same color. If you don't look carefully, you will be confused. The moment he approached Li Yi, Xingyu's eyes showed a look of realization. It turned out that he used the characteristics of ice and fire to turn water vapor into lenses, which directly refracted his gaze. It's just a trick. You can only fool me by relying on the suppression of the floating island. Now you are not far away from each other. Let's see what tricks you have. Xingyu sneered in his heart, and the fist carrying the power of divine will had already hit Li Yi. Bang! This punch really hit Li Yi. No fancy moves. But the moment it hit Li Yi, Hang Suer's face changed slightly. How could this physical strength be so much stronger than before? Does this kid have another way to weaken the physical suppression of the floating island? Just as he was shocked in his heart, Li Yi's fists and feet had already hit him suddenly. This punch also carried the sharpened special characteristics, breaking through the special suppression and accelerating rapidly. Under the suppression of the floating island, Li Yi's physical advantage was immediately reflected. Bang! Hang Suer's chest was directly hit by this blow, and it sank inward. The divine shield on his body was also broken immediately. Li Yi punched continuously, not prepared to give Hang Suer a chance to breathe. His current body, with 3.2 burst skills, 2.0 brain super lifting skills, and 50 nanometers of subtle perception, has reached the peak of his combat power. They are both suppressed by the floating island, and their divinity cannot be released. Hang Suer's hard power will be suppressed by at least 50%, while Li Yi will only be suppressed by 30%. Because of his long-term battles, he rarely relies on the attack power brought by the characteristics. More, he still uses the characteristics to realize various versions of burst skills and amplification skills, or improve reaction speed and perception. Therefore, by launching various amplification methods on this floating island, his combat power increase has obviously surpassed the combat power of most of the strongest people in the floating island. Although the heavenly trick has not been launched yet, his defense-breaking power is already amazing enough at this moment. There is no need to brew a heavenly trick. Just fight fast, stay active, and use the opponent's lightning characteristics to charge and forge the body. There is a high probability of turning the tables in this battle. Boom. 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 Hang Suer was shocked. After a series of extremely smooth combos, he actually had no room to fight back. The powerful thunder and lightning divine will, which hit Li Yi's body, was like a drop in the ocean, without any movement. Originally, it could paralyze Li Yi at the beginning, so that he could fight for 1 or 2 points of control and take the initiative to attack. But now it is completely the opposite, and he has to consider the problem of counter-attack space. Bang! With a loud noise, Hang Suer was kicked in the chest again, and suddenly jumped back more than 10 meters. At the same time, a lightning flash suddenly burst out in front of him, forming a sharp object like a sword, which suddenly blocked Li Yi in front of him and stopped him. After so many hits, he finally found a gap. His tall body has a lot of wounds at this moment. Green blood drips to the ground, making a sizzling sound. Hang Suer's expression was cold, and lightning flashed outside his body, repairing these injuries in an instant. This body, comparable to that of a demigod, after all, still reflects its tyrannical foundation. Haha, I wanted to keep my divinity to open it at the Enlightenment Mountain. Since you are looking for death, I will fulfill your wish as soon as possible. Chapter 381 Breakthrough. Hang Suer's moves are naturally more than that. His external divinity suddenly exploded, like a high-density flowing wind, stained with purple and blue light, and emitting the sound of winds and thunder. Boom. Golden trick, wind and thunder air needle piercing. In an instant, countless needle-shaped lightnings condensed highly, tore through the air, roared, and shot towards Li Yi. Its speed was amazingly fast. Li Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. The divine will and characteristic power contained in this needle piercing were by no means ordinary, almost several times stronger than before. It seems that Hang Suer before was still reserved. Can take it hard. Swish. 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 Li Yi's body flashed, avoiding these wind and thunder needle piercings. But immediately afterwards, these wind and thunder needle piercings, after hitting the air, suddenly appeared behind Li Yi after a flash, and pierced quickly. The absolutely fluid divine light behind Li Yi flashed past, blocking it for a moment, and then the body flashed again. But then, Hang Suer swung his wrist again, accompanied by the roar of wind and thunder, and another row of divine spikes stabbed over. In a moment, Li Yi was surrounded by the divine needles on both sides, without any room to turn. The wind and thunder needles on both sides suddenly closed like a trap. Boom. Intense lightning, strong roar, and a huge dust. Hang Suer narrowed his eyes slightly, and saw Li Yi's amazing operation through the dust and lightning. Li Yi's body was spread out, like a round pancake that was spread too thin, with dense round holes in the middle of the pancake, and hollow in front and back, which accurately matched the root of the wind and thunder needles on both sides of him. It seems that Li Yi used the deformation characteristics to accurately transform himself into a shape that avoids these waves of dense needles. Therefore, although Heng Suo's attack was fierce, exquisite, and consumed a lot of energy, not a single wind and thunder needle caused substantial damage to Li Yi. Instead, it was pulled in the direction by Li Yi's gravitational characteristics, and collided directly with the wind and thunder needles on the other side, cancelling each other out. Li Yi was only hit by the aftermath of the electric power after the collision of the wind and thunder needles, which was not a serious injury at all. Just a little stimulation of the growth characteristics can quickly recover. Seeing this result, Heng Suo's determination to destroy Li Yi is undoubtedly more determined. You know, Heng Suo's wind and thunder needles are a big move that can directly break the defense of even A-level mechas. Although it is not his most powerful move, the opponent was forced to such a point, but he could still resolve it so easily. It can be seen that Li Yi's combat wisdom is high. If left alone, he will become a great enemy. In this case, then ignore the loss and launch it with all your strength. Heng Suo squatted slightly with his knees, and his muscles swelled. Accumulate power and jump. Boom. A huge depression with a diameter of more than 10 meters appeared on the ground where he stood, and cracks appeared. His body, under the suppression, still showed an astonishing speed. He suddenly came in front of Li Yi and collided with him. Bang! Li Yi's body flew backwards. The collision was very heavy. Even though he had resolved more than half of it, he was still injured in the chest and internal organs by this huge force, and was seriously injured. In the fight with Heng Suo, although he maintained a balance for a while, the injuries he suffered were also accumulating. As time went on, the risk of defeat would become greater and greater. But fortunately, after several delays in continuous thunder forging, the opportunity for physical transformation was finally seized by him. During the backward flight, Li Yi felt an unprecedented sense of fullness in his body, and his mind became calmer. This thunder forging method, which has been continuously optimized through actual combat, continuously provides nourishment for the physical transformation in his body. The surging vitality seemed to be filled out. The fragments of the immortal divine nucleus hanging on his chest were also constantly radiating him, and under the transformation of his physical body, new divine genes began to be generated. Boom! Deep inside the cells, they are constantly reorganizing and strengthening, resonating and optimizing with the breathing of the body. Without any effort, Li Yi's eyes naturally emitted amazing divine light. At this moment, he knew that his body had finally reached the strongest level. The previous half-step threshold was finally crossed by him after multiple thunder forgings and the unique thunder and lightning divine will of Heng Suo. Not only that, with the transformation of the body, the divine genes are also being generated rapidly. The accumulated divine radiation continues to play a role. In addition to the first responding immortal divine genes, the divine genes of the Thunder God and the divine genes of the Wind God have also been stimulated and are continuously generated. In one breath, the divine genes in his body have been generated from 70 to 74 in one breath. The progress is so fierce and the growth is so fast that it is shocking. It is not far from the number of 81 of the three cores. Although most of the divinity in the body has not been restored, the newly generated ones have undoubtedly become the new force for his divinity supplement. On this side, Heng Suo noticed Li Yi's amazing changes, and his aura continued to surge, and he was also shocked. Breakthrough? Damn it! Heng Suo was furious. He was not angry at Li Yi's breakthrough, nor was he angry that his attack seemed to have made Li Yi successful, and it was due to his carelessness. Instead, this guy actually broke through calmly after enduring his golden trick. Isn't this a slap in his face? Moreover, after such a transformation, even if Heng Suo can win, he may not have the chance to catch up with the opening of the Enlightenment Mountain in the future. The slipping away of the opportunity also made him more angry. In this extreme anger, Heng Suo continued to burst out divinity, resisting the suppression of the floating island and relieving the pressure on his body. Then, his body continued to expand, from just over 2 meters to 3 meters. He became a humanoid monster with knotted muscles, thick joints, and thick skin, like a humanoid monster carrying lightning all over his body. This is exactly one of his tricks, the thunder demon atavism. Through the extreme refinement of the divine will to a certain degree, the divine will is transformed into divinity again, infiltrated into the body, and in turn continuously activates the physical body, so that the physical body has a magnificent and infinite, terrifying power comparable to the divine Mecha. It seems to be only 3 meters high, but the pure physical strength is enough to rival the A-class mecha. You know, whether it is humans or the star race, the general strongest and gold level, if you want to break the defense of the A-class mecha, you also need to rely on the characteristic combination skills to achieve it. Pure flesh, there is no way to break the defense of the A-class mecha. This is a big hurdle. But at this moment, with the stimulation of Hengsu's Thunder Demon atavism, his pure physical strength has completely gains all the combat power of most of the strongest. Even the demigod level has a chance to fight. Boy, you should be lucky, since I practice my platinum skill that can defeat the demigod. No one has ever seen it with their own eyes. A mere human child can witness such a trick of mine. You deserve to die. Chapter 382, Collapse. After Hengsu activated the Thunder Demon atavism and his body changed, he leaped and chased after Li Yi. This guy has obviously completed his transformation, but he has just been promoted, so there must be many unfamiliar things. Even if he is a master of the subtle level, I will definitely defeat him by attacking him when he is unprepared. In a flash of thought, he had already jumped in front of Li Yi, carrying the Thunder Demon's divine will and amazing kinetic energy in his palm, and slapped it down. Li Yi stretched out his palm to block and resist the attack. Bang! A sound like a large bomb exploding sounded. Li Yi retreated more than 10 steps and quickly resolved Hengsu's attack force. He shook his hand, and the slight numbness in his palm quickly subsided. The subtle tremors in his body continued to start, using the thunder forging method to resolve the Thunder Demon's divine will and recharge the cells. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes. His combat power seemed to have increased a lot more than expected. After his physical body was promoted to the strongest, he consumed a wave of previously charged thunder and lightning power. Although Hengsu's attack was amazing and powerful, several times more powerful than before, and also carried the Thunder Demon's divine will with even greater lethality. However, with a substantial transformation of his physical body, the increase in combat power brought by his own 50-nanometer level microscopic skills was also obviously exponential. Therefore, this time he was more calm than before, and absorbed more lightning to recharge. This scene was naturally seen by Hengsu, who felt unbelievable. How could this be possible? After the physical body was improved, could the increase in combat power be so great? He clearly sensed that the power of his attack was easily resolved by Li Yi. It was like being quickly offset by a bunch of dense needle-piercing forces with high-frequency vibrations. Compared with before, although Li Yi's technique was clever, he was far inferior in strength and could not play an advantage. But at this moment, the gap between the two martial arts realms began to emerge as their physical strength was greatly shortened. Kill. Must kill. Although Hengsu was shaken in his heart, his will to fight was not shaken at all. The more so, the heavier his killing intent became. Boom. Under the suppression of the floating island, he approached Li Yi again quickly, and the divinity in his palm was highly condensed, forming a cone-shaped sharp edge. On the sharp edge, the divine will gathered like a needle. This is his peak trick for close combat, the Thunder Demon Breaking Cone. With a highly condensed Thunder Demon divine will, it gathered the three strongest characteristics of thunder, strong magnetism, and golden wind, abandoned the attack distance, and gathered all the essence on the spikes in the fist. With a casual swing, it can tear the space. You must know that this is not a divine mecha. It is a terrifying destructive power achieved by a 3-meter body. The ability to tear the space at will, even a divine mecha of the high level of the heavenly position may not be able to achieve such a strong destructive power. After all, a high-level heavenly mecha has the ability to collapse planets, but if it does not have space-related characteristics, it is absolutely impossible to tear the space. In hand-to-hand combat, characteristics and abilities such as divine shields, absolute fluids, and even hardening and rigidity, one by one, cannot stop such a strong space-tearing force. Only similar space-time characteristics, or some characteristics with higher conceptual characteristics, can directly resist this move. Li Yi felt the fluctuations in the space in front of him, and was slightly surprised. How many tricks does Hengsu have? No wonder Qin Longquan and others couldn't take this guy down directly. Just by the fact that he could use his top tricks at will under the suppression of this floating island, it can be seen how terrifying his strength is. If it were another battlefield, Li Yi believed that even if he broke through, he would probably not be able to hold on for long. Swish. Hengsu's body shook, and he had already cut through the space. He suddenly came in front of Li Yi, and the boundary-breaking cone in his fist smashed down at an unparalleled speed. Li Yi's deformation characteristics were activated, and his body was pulled on the spot and moved to the side. In just a blink of an eye, the space where Li Yi was originally standing had been torn into a winding space crack. Li Yi looked sideways, and under the microscopic field of 50 nanometers, he saw that the floating dust around was floating and touching this line of space cracks, and silently collapsed into smaller atomic particles. This move must not be touched. If it touches, this part of the body will definitely collapse on the spot, and even the genes will collapse. Li Yi's pupils shrank slightly, and he became more alert. Heng Suer's face was solemn, and he continued to chase. He found that no matter when he attacked, Li Yi could react accurately. Either blocking or avoiding, he could always avoid the most powerful attack point. The predictive ability of this human child should not be underestimated. He seems to have grasped my action habits. It seems that I must give deceptive actions before he makes a judgment, so that he will make a mistake. Although my attack power is better than his now, the use of this Thunder Demon atavism and Thunder Demon breaking cone together consumes too much, and the battle must be resolved as soon as possible. If the time is delayed for too long, there will be no benefit. With this thought, Heng Suer's body paused slightly and stopped in midair. Then, with a rapid acceleration and two fake moves, he suddenly appeared in front of Li Yi and punched down at a medium speed. But just after the blast, he suddenly increased the speed. This is exactly the rhythm change technique similar to the fast and slow punches. This move requires a fighting realm as powerful as flowing water to perform. In actual combat, it has a very amazing battlefield control effect. It is also a move that Heng Suer has used in all previous battles. But Li Yi was unmoved. When Heng Suer accelerated rapidly, he still did not respond easily. Only when Heng Suer even touched him did he suddenly use the deformation characteristics to drive his body and dodge to one side. In this millisecond, the judgment game between the two sides was still controlled by Li Yi. Then, just after dodging, his body suddenly bounced, and under the sharp pull of the super-elastic characteristics, his body suddenly rebounded. With a blessing of this tyrannical elasticity, the power of the newly transformed body gathered in the fist, and it hit Heng Suer's chest with a bang. This is the first time that Li Yi hit Heng Suer after reaching the 50 nanometer level of microscopic. Bang! Heng Suer's chest suddenly sank. Not only that, the part of the hard skin hit by Li Yi, as if something strange had happened, was rapidly degenerating, dissolving, and becoming soft. Heng Suer's face changed drastically. What kind of trick is this? Why was the Thunder Demon atavism in his chest lifted all of a sudden? Li Yi laughed heartily, and took advantage of Heng Suer's divine fluctuations and the boundary-breaking cone in his palm when it was not very stable, and attacked frantically. In that attack just now, he successfully made Heng Suer appear in a state of genetic degradation with a control accuracy of 50 nanometers. The blood genes of Heng Suer that he extracted halfway before had long been recorded with microscopic perception, and in the previous many encounters, he kept trying to find the weak points of his genes. Now that the nanometer precision has reached 50 nanometers, it can finally smoothly achieve the effect of degenerating its genes with one punch. Chapter 383 Defeat. Heng Suer realized the ferocity of Li Yi's move, and shook his fists. The boundary-breaking cone in the center of his fist suddenly moved forward and hit Li Yi. Li Yi dodged again and approached from the side. Heng Suer's boundary-breaking cone was indeed powerful, but Li Yi's previous genetic degeneration punch had already made Heng Suer's divinity unstable. When this blow came, he dodged it easily. At the same time, Li Yi seized the opportunity and punched Heng Suer's left arm. Bang! With a loud noise, Heng Suer's extremely hard arm suddenly trembled uncontrollably. Obviously, there was a strong divine protection, but Li Yi's 50 nanometer precision still penetrated it easily. The skin and flesh softened, the muscles relaxed, and the boundary-breaking cone in the center of his fist was obviously unable to maintain its shape due to the degeneration of his arm. Obviously, divinity also has density. The protection density of the strongest divinity is mostly at 50 nanometers. After passing this threshold, Li Yi found that his damage to Heng Suer was significantly enhanced. The attack that was easily blocked by Heng Suer before can now easily produce results. Boom. 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 After several consecutive blows, Heng Suer's other arm was also severely injured and rapidly degenerated. The boundary-breaking cones on both fists were disintegrating. Heng Suer kept dodging Li Yi's next attack. Although he couldn't believe it in his heart, he still knew that his situation was over. He had already lost. Fighting on this floating island, he could no longer gain any advantage. Even if he persisted, he might fall here. With this thought in mind, Xingyu didn't care about the dignity of a strong man. His divine will suddenly stimulated and launched another golden trick that was the bottom of the box, purple thunder flashing through the air. The divinity in his mouth gathered, and the purple-blue electric light drew an arc and continued to condense. When Li Yi rushed to him, he suddenly sprayed. Whoosh! The thick purple-blue thunder column shot out with a bang. Li Yi had already noticed the moment when the divinity in Xingyu's mouth was condensed, and he had been on guard against Xingyu's attack in advance. Isn't this the preparatory action of the divine energy cannon? It seems that Xingyu has also mastered the trick of firing the divine energy cannon with his physical body. Before the divine energy cannon came, Li Yi flashed and avoided the cannon. However, when Li Yi was a few steps away, he found that Xingyu's body had already left the current floating island in a flash and suddenly flew towards the direction of Wudao Shenshin. This guy reacts quite quickly. If he continues to stay, he will really die. Li Yi did not chase him immediately, but stayed where he was and slowly adjusted his breathing. The reason why he did not chase him was because he knew that even if his physical body had broken through and the total amount of divinity had improved to a height comparable to the 7th stage of the heavenly position, if he changed the environment outside the floating island, he would still not be sure of winning against Xingyu. At most, it would be 50-50, or even only 40-60. The reason why he can show such a dominant force in battle now is certainly due to his own strength, but it is undeniable that the suppression of the floating island has also played a great role. In a different environment, he is confident that he can be equal, but he is still not able to defeat Xingyu. This guy is, after all, the top strongest, and has many means to hurt a demigod. It is good to be able to force him back and leave enough time for himself to recover. I believe that as long as there is enough time to develop, it will not be difficult to defeat Xingyu. At the same time, he gathered the divinity into his eyes, optimized its structure with the deformation characteristics, and observed the situation on the surface of the Wudao mountain remotely. Where are the people? Just now, Tanyaozu was besieged by a lot of souls over there. Now I don't know where he is now. At this moment, his vision penetrated thousands of kilometers and scanned the Wudao mountain, but he didn't find any trace of him. Although his current vision cannot see the Wudao mountain completely, but at least within the range of his current vision, Tanyaozu has disappeared from his original position. Li Yi felt a little regretful. At this distance, the clarity of vision was not high, and his microscopic perception was useless. I can't go out rashly now. If I leave the floating island, Xingyu may still attack me. This guy has probably figured it out. As long as I leave the floating island, he still has a chance to take me down. On the contrary, he has completely lost the chance to take me down on this floating island. In that case, let's recover our physical strength first. Just now, I used his thunder and lightning divine will to recharge my cells. There is also a lot of free electricity around, which can help me recover quickly. With this in mind, he sat down cross-legged on the spot, regardless of whether the current position was easy to be attacked by Xingyu. That's right, he was going to fish openly and fish Xingyu over. If he couldn't fish it back, he would take the opportunity to optimize the coordinated rate transformation method and the thunder forging method, and speed up the time to strengthen his body's strength. He has now broken through a major barrier, and his physical strength has increased significantly. It is just the window period for physical growth. He can use this increased strength and micro-precision to further improve his physical strength. The 50-nanometer precision plus his current strength will allow him to complete several more rounds of body forging and improve his physical body to its current limit. I should also find an opportunity to strengthen my vision. It was fine before with the assistance of the divine Mecha, but there is no divine Mecha here, and my current vision will have great limitations in my insight into the remote situation. My eyeballs should use the deformation characteristics to maintain a fixed optimized structure, so that they can be changed at any time to adapt to various occasions. Some of the divine creatures I encountered before should also have excellent vision. At that moment, he was busy absorbing free electricity to restore his state, optimizing the body forging method, and trying to optimize the eyeball structure with the deformation characteristics. With his current soul strength, it is not difficult to do it at the same time. In a blink of an eye, 20 minutes passed quietly. Xingyu did not attack again once, which made Li Yi relax a lot. During this period, he took the time to pick up He Guangzi's physical body that he had thrown away before, and refrozen it to prevent the resurrected person of the third era from waking up. At the moment, he felt that he was not strong enough, so he did not rush to interrogate the resurrector. At this time, he referred to the eyeball structures he had seen in the past and added 3 types of eyeball structures to his own eyes, which could be adjusted at any time. The first type referred to the divine eagle creatures, which have super long-sightedness. With the help of the divine enhancement, they can see through tens of thousands of kilometers at a glance, and it is very clear. He named this type the one-eye eye. The other type refers to many internal principles of the nanosensor. After the stimulation of the divine, combined with his own microscopic perception, it can achieve microscopic observation of 100 nanometers. Don't think that this seems to be inferior to his own nanosensor. After all, this is a preliminary attempt. He currently relies purely on his own eyesight, but he can't complete this kind of microscopic observation. He can only rely on the frequency feedback obtained by the penetration and rebound of the subtle force to outline the picture in his mind, just like the echo-sensing system of a bat. Now that the assistance of microscopic strength has been added, it will undoubtedly be more accurate and efficient when performing various micro-operations in the future. The improvement in combat power must be very large. Just like when he fought Hengsu before, he first obtained the opponent's blood, and then after a fierce battle, he determined the weakness in his genes and destroyed it in one fell swoop. If he had the second level of assistance now and the accuracy was in place, he would probably be able to solve the problem directly in 2 or 3 moves. He would call this type of person the microscopic eye. Chapter 384 Strengthening. The third type has superior dynamic capture vision and has a very strong ability to observe objects moving at high speed. This ability is possessed by every Xianwei and the strongest, but the level is different. In the process of human evolution through divine genes, the naked eye will naturally be strengthened accordingly. In actual combat, different dynamic high-speed capture capabilities also mean different reaction speeds, which means which side can grasp the opponent's dynamics more accurately in battle. Liu used to rely mainly on the ability to predict to achieve control over various opponents, and he has always performed well. But this time when facing Hengsuo's strong predictive ability, although he still showed a level beyond Hengsuo, he did not have the previous crushing feeling. This made him understand that in addition to predictive ability, other aspects also need to be properly strengthened. For this eyeball structure, he mainly referred to the divine giant clam and high-speed dynamic camera encountered in the Xianxu ruins. The combination of the two also made his dynamic capture ability in wartime have a huge leap. What is the specific degree of the leap? Simply put, it is a high frame number, which can observe millions of frames of dynamic information in 1 second. Of course, to achieve this level, the burden on brain power and vision is not small. He has currently designed 4 frame rate levels of 100,000, 300,000, 600,000 and 1 million, which are applied to different opponents. 1 million frames is not the limit of his brain power, but if you add the various variables of the battle and the rapidly changing battle status, then 1 million frames is basically his current limit. In the battle, he can see 1 million decomposed images, and quickly process them in his mind to complete the reaction action. This series of processes can only be covered by his current physical body, comparable to the strongest, and his brain power has skyrocketed. Before, he couldn't do this at all. Moreover, even so, he estimated that he could only use 1 million frames for half a minute at most during wartime. If it is higher, the brain power will not be able to handle it when encountering complex high-speed battle scenes. After all, the observation speed of 1 million frames per second means that the trajectory of light can be barely captured by the eyes. Of course, it is just barely. It is equivalent to seeing light passing by more than 10 kilometers away in an instant. If the observation speed can reach tens of millions of frames, the trajectory of light will basically be clearly presented in front of your eyes. In other words, if it really reaches that level, even if you are caught off guard by the divine energy cannon, you will have enough room to react. The motion capture ability of a regular strongest person naturally cannot do this. To dodge the divine energy cannon, you either need to be in the state of controlling the divine mecha, which will increase your reaction speed, or you need to predict the enemy's movements and react in advance. In addition, the divine energy cannon at close range can basically only be resisted by the divine shield. Therefore, this third eyeball structure is also what Li attaches the most importance to at present, and it is very helpful in space combat. He named it the overclocking eye. After completing the basic design and testing of these 3 eyeball structures, another half an hour passed. Because he had inspiration before and there were a lot of references in his memory, his efficiency was still extremely amazing. In less than an hour, he had iterated his observation system fiercely. With this wave of upgraded 3 eyeball structures, I believe that there will be a small increase in actual combat performance. During this period, because he was more and more focused on the work of eyeball transformation, he did not make much progress in optimizing the thunder forging method. But this is not surprising. Before, the optimization was basically done quickly. Now, the most we can do is to check for leaks and make up for deficiencies, but the benefits are less. Fortunately, although the thunder forging method has not been optimized enough, the progress of forging the body in the past hour is still good. The increase in strength brought by the transformation of the body to the strongest level has been basically digested, making the body more stable. After 2 waves, he estimated that he should be able to fight Xingyu head-on outside the floating island. The battle winning rate should be increased from 40% to 64%. Even if Xingyu can't find a way to defend against his 50nm level settle power, the winning rate can be pulled to 73%. It's almost recovered. If it develops in a short time, there may not be much room for growth. In that case, go find Brother Tan first, keep it steady. With this thought in mind, he jumped up, and the divine flame behind him flashed. He used the spatial characteristics to dissolve the surrounding spatial viscosity and flew out of the range of the floating island in an instant. He didn't encounter Xingyu along the way. Li Yu looked around and could find the movement tracks left by Xingyu, but he did not rush to look for this guy. Although he did not want to keep this guy for the new year. But after all, he was not completely sure of winning. After all, if Xingyu still had a trump card, the result would still be unknown. Therefore, his goal this time was to find Tanyaozu first, so that with his assistance, even if he encountered a battle later, it would be much easier. After a while, his figure quickly appeared 1,000 meters outside the Guotao Divine Mountain. Within this 1,000-meter distance, his microscopic eyes can come in handy. The deformation characteristics were activated, and the shape of the eyeball changed slightly. Countless tiny compound eyes appeared directly around the white of the eye, and the pupil shrank slightly to form a pure black round hole. From the perspective of this microscopic eye, he quickly saw the traces of Tanyaozu's activities. Run so far, with a thought, Li Yu moved his body, and the Guotao Divine Mountain continued to accelerate vertically upward. Observe the surface of Guotao Divine Mountain all the way. This supergiant mountain comparable to a star, the gravity is firmly sealed within 900 meters, which is really magical. After flying about 300 kilometers, Li Yu saw a circular crater. The crater was not big. It was called a crater, but it was more like an embedded hilly mountain. It was not very high, only about 200 meters. It can be seen that the traces of Tanyaozu's activities disappeared in this crater. The various souls sensed by the microelectric characteristics before were also wandering in this crater. They seemed to be afraid to go in, but they were unwilling to leave. Li Yu observed for a moment and became entangled. Should he go down? According to Tanyaozu, once the Enlightenment Mountain is within 900 meters, not only will the physical strength be greatly suppressed, but the divinity and characteristics will also be suppressed. At that time, whether he can escape from the Enlightenment Mountain is also a question. Well, according to the cyclone layout around the Enlightenment Mountain, it may be more difficult to return by the original route. There should be an entrance and exit for transmission in the Enlightenment Mountain. Based on the last experience, this cyclone map may be just an accident. As his thoughts turned, he finally made up his mind. This Enlightenment Mountain must be entered. Get involved. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 385 Situation. In the darkness, Li Yu slid down and inward along the crater of the volcano in a skiing-like posture. It was just as Tanyaozu said, the divine nature was fully suppressed and could not be released, and the physical body pressure was about 100 times the gravity. And 100 times the gravity was almost the limit of the physical body of the middle stage of the heavenly position. Under this level of gravity, even the strongest could not show an amazing speed beyond the eyeball. Fortunately, Although the divine nature could not be released, the control and activation of the characteristics in the body were still no problem. This also made Li Yu breathe a sigh of relief and had more confidence in the next exploration. Unlike other strong men, his core moves rarely rely on the release of the divine nature. Like the explosive skills, brain superlifting skills, subtle strength, and the new skills he named the 3-eye technique, they are all targeted at the physical body, or the skills that the characteristics play a role in the body. On the contrary, conceptual characteristics such as space and gravity, although powerful, are consumed a lot, so he rarely uses them except on a few occasions. Therefore, when he entered the Guotao mountain this time, his strength was not weakened much under the same circumstances. If he faced Hengser here, his chance of winning would be higher, at least 80-20. Rustle. The cooled magma in the crater of this volcano is very common, and it is covered with a thick layer of ash. The ash is fine and even, like a polished gemstone, reflecting the faint light from the crater, and it is light white. He slid down all the way, which was quite easy. Out of caution, he did not jump directly to go deep below, so his speed was not slow. In this mysterious place, without the divine mecha, he had to be careful. Even though his current body already had the capital to smash the B-class mecha with one punch. After sliding down for more than 10 minutes, the darkness in front suddenly showed some light. Well, do you see the exit? He was moved in his heart, and immediately activated the deformation characteristics, transforming the eye structure into a 1,000-mile eye. At the same time, under the stimulation of divinity, he kept observing the situation in the distance. It's safe for now, let's go. After confirming that there was no threat, he suddenly jumped forward, using the internal gravity to fall rapidly like falling off a cliff. Whoosh! The wind whistled in his ears, Li Yu turned upside down, his body swayed like a swimming fish, and his arms paddled to accelerate his fall. After falling for at least tens of thousands of meters, he saw that he was getting closer and closer to the exit. He swung his arms forward suddenly, and the subtle forces in his arms resonated, forming an extremely powerful force, which shook forward. Whoosh! A strong wind suddenly rose, and his amazing falling speed was stagnant. Under this strong wind, his body froze for a moment, and then continued to fall. Until it landed on the ground. Bang! A circular pit 3 or 4 meters wide was smashed into the ground. Li Yu loosened his muscles. This speed, this fall. Cool. It turns out that it feels so good to have a stronger body. The fall of 100 times the gravity was easily handled. The strongest body, coupled with this subtle force of 50 nanometers, can produce all kinds of magical operations even without any divinity and characteristics. Originally, this terrifying distance of at least 100,000 meters added up. Even a strong person would not dare to say that he could easily handle the fall under 100 times the gravity without divinity. The terrifying kinetic energy brought by this speed is enough to shatter the armor of any B-level divine mecha. After realizing it in his heart, he looked up and observed the environment in front of him. This is an amazing continent with a vast and boundless border. The place where he stood was about 10,000 meters away from the dome that had just fallen. This huge circular entrance and exit was opened on the dome like an unfathomable black hole. Above the dome, various fine ferns grew, which were very dense. Li Yu observed clearly that these ferns could actually glow. The gorgeous aurora that appeared and disappeared around the dome was emitted by these ferns. This place gave him the feeling of the Xianshu ruins. However, this Guotao mountain is much larger and does not exist in the world like the Xianshu ruins. In Li Yu's observation, this Guotao mountain should be located in the gap between time and space, or between illusion and reality, or a magical existence that combines the characteristics of the former two. He couldn't say what this should be called, because the past knowledge system did not involve this aspect. But it is obvious that the existence of Guotao mountain is extremely special. After observing for a while, he saw Lao Tan's footprints. When he slid down the volcanic circular channel before, he could see Lao Tan's footprints. Now they are also here, proving that Lao Tan has indeed come here. The location is just 300 meters in front of him. There is another larger falling pit, about 20 meters wide, nearly 10 times larger than Li Yi. It seems that Lao Tan's falling skills are not mature enough this time, and he landed hard. Li Yi followed Lao Tan's steps, moved forward quickly, and soon found Tan Yaozu in front. When the two met, Tan Yaozu was shocked. Fuck. Why are you here too? I have to come. Hengser is wandering around outside. and I can't think of a way to get out of the cyclone area for the time being. I think the only way to leave here is to find a portal in Guotao Mountain. Alice, it seems that Guotao Mountain is not easy to survive, Tanyaozu sighed. I have already run a small circle on the surface of Guotao Mountain, but found nothing, and attracted a lot of souls who wanted to enter me. Although there are no soul bodies in here, the suppression is more severe. I just fell here and suffered some internal injuries, and my strength has decreased a lot. Liu was speechless. Old Tan is really unlucky. Brother Tan, you just walked around here, did you find anything? No, Tanyaozu said, however, there's bad news here. There's a lot of free energy here, but there seems to be nothing edible around. After I was transformed into a ship, I can maintain my vitality for a long time here, but it's hard to say for you. In my opinion, you might as well stay on the floating island for a while. Liu shrugged and said, there's nothing to eat on the floating island, it's the same for everyone. However, although I can't absorb free energy, I can absorb free electricity, which should be enough to maintain vitality, but it's a bit troublesome. Electricity, Tanyaozu said thoughtfully. I did see a place that seemed to be filled with thunder and lightning. Since we can't find a way out for the time being, why don't I take you there first? Let's restore our perfect state first, consolidate and improve it, and then look for a way out. How about it? Okay, Liu nodded. Although he had almost recovered before, the cells in his body can still continue to charge energy, and there are still a lot of vacancies. In this case, let's charge first and make plans later. Chapter 386, Thunder Pool. The place where Tanyaozu took Liu was 300 kilometers away. It was a small hill, and there seemed to be nothing unusual from a distance. But the closer the distance, the more abundant the free lightning power in the air. When I fell down from the ground, I had no clues and could only walk aimlessly. However, when I came to this place, I felt a completely different surging thunder and lightning atmosphere and remembered this place. But to be honest, I haven't explored this place seriously. Along the way, the two of them ran wildly, like two leopards running across the vast and boundless continental plains. If you look down from the sky, the two of them are really insignificant against a backdrop of this vast land. After all, this is an area with 100 times the gravity. Even if both of them have the strongest physical strength, their movement speed is naturally restricted. At best, it is equivalent to a flying car, maintaining a constant speed of 400 kilometers per hour all the way. If there is no gravity restraint, when they run, ordinary people can't see them at all, they can only feel a gust of wind. Brother Tan, are you healed? Well, it shouldn't affect your combat effectiveness in another hour or so. That's okay. What the hell is okay? You fell down and were unharmed, but I was injured. Do you know how lame I am? Haha, Brother Tan, you're joking. If falling down would affect your combat effectiveness for a day or two, then you'd be rubbish, Tanyaozu. Well, it's good to have talent. You seem to have said nothing, but you've said everything. You're so ruthless. I'm not saying that you're rubbish, Brother Tan. Don't put yourself in my shoes. Okay, let's talk about something else. There may be some opportunities in the place we're going to next. You'd better pay attention. Opportunity, that's right. I didn't figure it out when I passed by just now, but now I have, Tanyaozu said as he ran. In such a vast place, there is actually a place with such a strong aura of lightning that does not dissipate for a long time. There must be a device that can gather this kind of energy for a long time. Although we have encountered many twists and turns in this Guotao Divine Mountain, we have not encountered a place with similar challenges. Do you think it is possible that there is a trial level here? But our primary goal now is to find Qin Bangzhang and his men, right? Yes, but there are no clues now. Why not try to participate in the trial first? Maybe we can get some way out. Don't you think so? Liu pondered and said, if there is a trial, then we will each choose a single challenge area. He also agreed with Tanyaozu's statement. This Guotao Divine Mountain is as big as a star. With their current foot strength, running at full speed without sleep, it will take at least half a year to complete a circle. Even if the divinity is not suppressed, it will probably take more than 10 days to fly a large circle of Guotao Divine Mountain without a divine mecha. If every corner of its surface is to be thoroughly explored, the time spent will be even more terrifying. Without the divine mecha, they are now like small ants. Even if Liu's body can destroy the armor of the B-class mecha with all his strength, it is far from destroying a large planet. There is no other reason. The total mass of a flesh and blood body less than 2 meters tall is too far from that of a planet. Even if the divinity is added, it will not work. Because the total amount of divinity that the human body can store is limited, no matter how great the lethality stimulated per unit time is, it will be insignificant when magnified to a planetary target. At the minimum, there must be a divine mecha of 200 or 300 meters in height, which can store and gather the terrifying total amount of divinity, and then burst out an extremely powerful divine attack, and then achieve the degree of destroying the planet. If you want to explode a star with a physical body, either the total amount of divinity must be stored to a level that exceeds the physical body by 100 times. Or, the physical body must reach the strength of a semi-god or even higher, so that it can use the subtle force to explode a star with bare hands. Li Yi has a clear understanding of this. The war will come in 3 months, but if it drags on here, the best time for humans to fight will be missed. We must find a way to get out of Guotao Mountain as soon as possible. And the trial is undoubtedly the most likely opportunity. With this idea in mind, the two of them got closer and closer to the small hill of dozens of meters, filled with lightning power. Zizzy, zizzy. Affected by the electricity in the air, the hair of the two people shot up, as hard as spikes. From time to time, there were crackling sounds, bursting from their skin. You know what? This place is quite sour and refreshing. Tanyaozu's mouth muscles twitched slightly due to the electricity, and his face looked weird. Because he couldn't use the coordination characteristic, he could only endure the electricity rushing into his skin and constantly shocking himself. As for the electricity rushing into the body, it could be slightly relieved. Li Yi, on the contrary, felt a sense of pleasure like a fish entering the sea. Under the activation of his thunder forging method, the cells in the body continue to agitate and absorb lightning. We haven't even approached the center yet, and there is such a strong electric power. According to the ratio of distance and intensity, the lightning intensity in the center is probably enough to kill the strongest. Li Yi observed the air vibration caused by the obvious flow of electricity in the air ahead, and pondered. It looks really dangerous, Tanyaozu, let's slow down. If it doesn't work, change to another place. At this moment, life is the most important. If you can't save your life, it's useless even if you become stronger here. Li Yi nodded. As they talked, the two kept moving forward. The speed was getting slower and slower. More and more cautious. About 10 minutes later. Boom. Tanyaozu seemed to have touched a strong lightning-intensive area in front of him, and was suddenly bounced back by the electromagnetic force field in it. He jumped back 7 or 8 steps before he stabilized. Li Yi looked back and saw that the white protective uniform on Tanyaozu's chest had been burned by electricity for more than half, emitting a burning smell. Tanyaozu, be careful. When I just walked over, there was clearly nothing in front of me, but when I took that step, something suddenly flashed in front of me. Li Yi's heart moved. Could it be a ball lightning that can teleport? Maybe. Anyway, be careful. 5 minutes later, the two had already entered the area with dense electric fields. The surrounding force field was very strong, and their speed of movement was further slowed down. At this time, Li Yi just took a step and felt a ball of dense lightning flashing out of thin air in front of him and touching him directly. Is it really ball lightning? Li Yi's face changed slightly, and he forcibly raised his foot to retract it. Unexpectedly, the ball lightning bounced violently and flashed again. This time, it actually flashed to his body. Boom. The powerful force of lightning suddenly blasted into his body. Li Yi's protective suit was instantly cracked and charred by electricity. He made a prompt decision to increase the intensity of the thunder forging method. Chapter 387 God's Will. In this ball lightning, Li Yi actually felt a bit of divine power. Thunder God Sequence Divine Will. This is different from Hengsuo's Thunder Demon Divine Will. It is purer and more vast. The two kinds of divine will washing in his body made him faintly grasp a trace of divine will. After breaking through to the subtle realm for more than half a year, he has been constantly improving with the help of parallel fragments. Now, he has already mastered all the skills of the subtle realm. Although there is still a lot of room for development in his subtle realm, he can continue to exercise and raise the accuracy to the normal 1 nanometer level, or even higher precision. But this does not affect his further breakthrough to the divine realm of fighting skills. Because the subtle skills are enough, what is lacking is the soul strength to withstand the corresponding skills. And now, he has undoubtedly obtained such an opportunity for a breakthrough. It is different from Hengsuo's divine will, which was obviously obtained by other ways. Li Yu clearly felt that the divine will that can be mastered by fighting skills is completely different from his Thunder Demon Sequence divine will. This may also be the effect of the art of emptiness, but at this moment, under the bombardment of the ball lightning, Li Yu did feel a hint of opportunity. This opportunity was fleeting. Although he quickly grasped it, he still felt that there was still some feeling missing. It was very subtle, like an inch stop. It was clearly rubbed inside, but it still couldn't go in completely. Damn, it's too uncomfortable. This feeling of wanting to go in but not being able to go in was really unpleasant. Another ball lightning, maybe there will be a chance. Then, he took a step forward and continued to move forward. Ball lightning, come on. Behind him, Tanyaozu noticed the strange changes in Li Yi and was also a little surprised. This kid, it seems that he has realized something again? This faint breath of divine will, could it be that he has realized the divine will of the Thunder God sequence? Or the divine will of the fighting type? Tanyaozu knew that divine will is a special state after the divinity is highly strengthened, which can be simply understood as a higher energy and higher dimension of divinity. Generally speaking, starting from the high stage of the heavenly position, the corresponding divine will can be gradually refined. For example, if he majored in the coordination of divine nature, he could extract the coordination of divine will and enhance his divine attack power. In addition to having a certain degree of coordination effect, divine will is also a special energy. This kind of divine will can harm the soul, can transcend matter to affect the virtual, and has a certain degree of autonomous vitality, which is very special. In essence, it has already possessed conceptual characteristics, and it is difficult for ordinary people to resolve it. However, only a very small part can be extracted by the high-level heavenly stage, and it cannot be used in actual combat for the time being. But in mecha combat, even if only a small part is extracted, it can improve the defense strength and attack strength of various divine natures. Although Tanyaozu has been promoted to the strongest for several days, he has naturally not started to study how to extract divine will from divinity. At this moment, seeing Li Yi's state of obviously mastering divine will, how could he not be surprised? This kid's shortcomings are getting fewer and fewer. The total amount of divinity has not been raised yet, but he has already touched the hint of divine will, and it is not an ordinary refinement, but a realm reached through fighting skills. Does this mean that once Li Yi masters divine will, he can use it with great intensity? Tanyaozu thought, unable to hide his envy. This talent is different. Just by touching a ball lightning, he seems to have understood something. At this time, Li Yi in front of him was attacked by another ball lightning as he walked forward. Li Yi was not surprised but happy about this. This is what he wanted. Boom. In the violent sound, it seemed that a neon light was turned on in Li Yi's body, and countless purple and blue colors radiated outward through his skin. Infinite light and infinite spectrum flashed around Li Yi's body. Instantly, the light intensity of Li Yi's walking neon light increased, as if it was an incandescent flame with scorching heat. These colors seem to represent various divine powers. There is definitely more than just the divine will of the Thunder God sequence. There are also special colors such as Pluto, Gaia, and Uranus, as well as Life God, Wind and Fire, and even some extremely powerful, but Tanyaozu couldn't understand the light of God's will. Fuck, Tanyaozu was shocked. The God's will realm reached by using fighting skills, is its characteristic to be able to control all kinds of God's will. This way, it can save the trouble of refining one by one. Not only that, the dense lightning around was still converging towards Li Yi. It was as if Li Yi had become the center of the vortex, swallowing countless lightning forces into his body like a whale swallowing the sea. He did not stop, but took one step forward and moved forward to the area with the more dense lightning forces in front. Zzz. The dense lightning sizzling sound rang out at a high frequency. Tanyaozu found that the lightning field around him, which was originally extremely powerful, had become much lighter. The burnt spots on the surface of the skin also healed quickly as the lightning power decreased. This kid can actually absorb these lightnings. How does he store so much energy? Tanyaozu was more and more puzzled. He had read the archives and knew that there was an infinite spire in the heritage ruins, which could greatly expand their body's divine reserves. However, the lightning power that Li Yi had absorbed now should have exceeded the limit of human storage, right? How could it be converted? Even if he had completed the ship transformation and was promoted to the strongest, he knew that if he continued to absorb like this, he would have reached his limit. Well, Li Yi may have to continue like this for a long time. I'm in a good position. I'll restore my physical strength and divinity first. Tanyaozu had no choice but to sit down, close his eyes, and start practicing. After being promoted to the strongest, he hadn't consolidated much, and he hurried to support. After that, he encountered a lot of troubles, and he really didn't have the time to consolidate carefully. Such a rare opportunity, naturally, he had to digest the benefits of the previous battles. Although masters like Tanyaozu's efficiency is far less than Li Yi's, it is also amazing enough. Time passed quickly, and 3 hours passed. At this moment, Li Yi has walked to the center of the lightning. The power of lightning sweeping out of his body is becoming more and more amazing, and it lingers for a long time. At this moment, Tanyaozu is sitting quietly on the side, slowly inhaling and exhaling the surrounding free energy to restore his physical strength and transform his divinity. When he opened his eyes and looked at Li Yi's figure in the distance, he was shocked. This kid hasn't absorbed enough yet. With his concentration, he must have stored 30 to 40 times more than his own reserves. Just thinking about it, suddenly, I saw the amazing lightning gathered around Li Yi, suddenly rolled up, and instantly merged into his body, like a whale sucking water, and was swept away in an instant. There was no trace of free lightning in the surrounding hundreds of meters. Is he done? Chapter 388 Help. Li Yi, what on earth have you mastered that makes such a big noise? To be honest, I can understand the first part, but I don't understand you at all about the latter part. How did you swallow so much thunder and lightning power in one breath? Tanyaozu approached Li Yi, looked him up and down, and was amazed. Li Yi slowly opened his eyes. Crackling. Countless arcs suddenly flashed out when Li Yi opened his eyes, and kept flashing in his sight, illuminating the surroundings, which was extremely magical. Boom. The arcs became larger and larger, connecting into pieces, burning the ground in front of Li Yi into charred black. Zzzzz. Tanyaozu was shocked. What an amazing power. He estimated in his heart that the power generated in just this moment was at least equivalent to the power of a full-strength attack of the first stage of the heavenly position. It was really beyond people's imagination that the side alone had such power. Li Yi, what's your new trick? Li Yi shook his head. No, I just inhaled too much in one breath, and now I can't control it completely, so I have to release some to relieve the internal pressure of my body. Awesome. Tanyaozu's heart moved, and he tried to reach out to touch Li Yi. Crack. Before he touched Li Yi, Tanyaozu's palm was hit by a burst of electric arc, and his palm was fuzzy, and a faint white smoke rose. Good fellow, did you absorb the lightning field just now into your body as well? Almost, Li Yi said while stretching his muscles. The lightning power around here is so abundant. In essence, it is a special lightning field produced under the influence of something. I have just comprehended part of the essence of the divine will. With the help of my own lightning characteristics, I have the ability to control these lightning fields freely. Originally, my own lightning characteristics are like an ant trying to shake a tree compared to the lightning field in this place. It is absolutely impossible to easily divert such a powerful lightning, but because I have comprehended the wonders of the divine will, I can also use the huge power of my physical body to amplify my lightning characteristics. In this way, a lever-like prying effect can be produced, instantly absorbing these lightning forces into the body. Tanyaozu, awesome. But how could your physical body absorb such a large amount of lightning power? This is many times more than the limit of the body, right? Li Yi smiled. This is the wonder of 50 nanometers. With so many cells in the human body, if we use the divine storage method, we can probably only store a small part, but this is by no means the limit of the physical body. But human power cannot control this energy, so it can only be stored in the surface of the body. The utilization rate of the body reserves of conventional masters is probably no more than 10% at most, but with 50 nanometers, I can complete the extremely fine diversion and utilize every cell in the body. I can't say it reaches 100%, but more than 70% is no problem. Li Yi did achieve amazing operations through divine will and subtle skills. To achieve this step, the core is the strength of the soul. A super soul that can handle many details at the same time, comparable to the top supercomputer. This is also Li Yi's most core talent. After all, only he can continuously enhance the soul by constantly absorbing the massive memory fragments in the dream plane. Others can only rely on accumulation over time and promote the soul with the physical body. Even if they have cracked some of the soul secrets of the ancients and have the means of enhancement, they are still far less than Li Yi's growth rate. Today, As his strength gradually improves to the point where his body is comparable to the strongest, his soul has naturally gained a lot. Li Yu estimates that his current soul surplus has almost reached 160. In other words, his soul strength is still 160 vacancies compared to his current number of 74 divine genes. This kind of soul strength may not be achieved even by the top strongest. Fuck, Tanyaozu sighed, I really envy your talent. The longer I know you, the more I feel that I have lived in vain for the past 200 years, Li Yu said. Brother Tan, you are joking. Your talent is not bad. There is really no need to compare with me. You should compare with Brother Lu and Brother He. You are of the same generation. Although you are telling the truth, it always feels that it is not so right. Tanyaozu smacked his lips and said, let's not talk about this. I have another question. Since your body can store so much lightning power, does it mean that your physical endurance can be greatly improved? Li Yu nodded and said, that's natural. Moreover, my physical body can slowly grow with the help of these lightning powers. This is also thanks to the coordination characteristics of Brother Tan. Your coordination characteristics have transformed into the strongest body, which has helped me a lot in completing this set of methods. As he spoke, Li Yu also slowly adapted to the current physical changes. First of all, the realm of fighting skills is naturally the threshold of the realm of divine will. In this realm, he can refine divine will by raising his hand, making his fist power extremely lethal. At the same time, the most proficient divine will at present is naturally the divine will of the Thunder God sequence. After all, he seized the opportunity from Hangzhou and this special thunder pool. The next is the three sequences of Pluto, Gaia, and Uranus, and then the others. Just as Tanyaozu guessed, the divine realm of fighting skills is indeed easier to refine divine will, and any sequence can be controlled. Of course, this control is not proficient in mastering it right away, but depends on whether he has long-term and in-depth use of this part of the divine sequence. His divine control skills are already perfect, which also played a big role in this regard. Therefore, although the efficiency of his divine abilities of different sequences in refining divine will varies, in general, the gap is not obvious, and there is basically no shortcoming. In other words, as long as he wants, he can refine the divine will corresponding to these divine sequences he possesses. In terms of the gain in actual combat, it is also mysterious and amazing. Although he has not tested it yet, he has a clear feeling after trying it casually. If he faces Hangzhou again now, it is estimated that no matter what environment, he can have an 80-20 winning rate. This is good news. While counting in his mind, Li Yu stepped forward, stretched out his hand and punched the ground, exploding a small pit. In the small pit, a fist-sized fragment of the divine elemental core bounced up and was caught by Li Yi. Tanyaozu walked over and was amazed. It seems that this fragment of the divine elemental core is the culprit of the thunder pool just now. Yes, if it is true, then this thing must be at least SS level, or even more terrifying. After all, the strength of this thunder pool is amazingly terrifying, Tanyaozu exclaimed. Li Yi waited and felt a powerful divine radiation from this fragment of the divine elemental core. He felt that the divine gene of the Thunder God sequence in his body was ready to move. He is not like before. In the past, his microscopic perception had not reached the nanometer level, and the mobilization of the divine gene mainly relied on feeling. But now, with a subtle perception of 50 nanometers, he can also know the subtle changes of the divine gene. Therefore, he soon noticed the impact of this divine elemental core on himself. This strength is probably at the same level as the immortal divine elemental core, or slightly inferior. Brother Tan, you are right. This thing is conservatively estimated to be SSS level, Li Yu said slowly. Hiss. Good fellow, then you have made a profit. Don't you still have a lot of divine genes that need to be generated in your Thor sequence? With this fragment, the quality of your Thor sequence divine genes can be at least 10 times higher. Tanyaozu's eyes showed envy. Li Yu looked at Tanyaozu and was about to say something. Tanyaozu stretched out his hand to stop him and said with a smile, I know what you are going to say. Do you think that I discovered this place first and don't want to be the only one to benefit? You don't have to be like this. We are all comrades in the same trench, trusting each other with life and death. You helped me to become the strongest before, and I haven't given you anything in return. This thing belongs to you, no need to divide anything. Li Yu smiled and stopped talking. He put away this guaranteed SSS divine core fragment. Even if it is just such a small fragment, The bonus to the generation efficiency of divine genes is far higher than that of an ordinary complete S-level divine core. Speaking of which, I don't know if someone put this thing here on purpose, or for some other reason, Tanyaozu said. Li Yi, can you find the traces of it? Li Yi shook his head and said, there are too many traces of lightning here, which have completely covered the previous traces. Since there is no other use here for the time being, let's look for other entrances and exits. Originally, the two thought that this place would be a trial area, but unexpectedly, this was just a terrifying thunder pool caused by an SSS-level divine core fragment. It was not a trial at all. Immediately, the two changed direction and continued to move forward. On the other side, in a dark maze. Old Lu is really gone, Zhao He said in a deep voice. More than half an hour has passed since they noticed that Lu Yunsheng disappeared. Qin Longquan and Zhao He searched separately, but still found nothing. In this way, they had to admit that Lu Yunsheng was most likely teleported out of the silent area. According to their understanding of the silent area, once teleported out, it would be difficult to predict life and death. Although there has been no similar disappearance of the strongest people of this level before, it stands to reason that the strongest people would not be killed so easily by the silence zone. But the situation is still much more difficult. Qin Longquan said, there is no other way. Let's find a way to get out first. There are so many traps inside the Enlightenment Mountain. From another perspective, maybe this place is the real Enlightenment Mountain. What we explored before may be just the outer layer, and this is the real inner part. Although Zhao He was helpless, he could only accept Qin Longquan's statement for the time being. He didn't expect that just to deal with Hengser's matter, they actually trapped several human masters. If the delay is too long, I'm afraid the strategy plan will be blocked. At the very least, Feng Hai's teleportation drifting mission cannot be carried out. Because the other core figure of this mission, Tanyaozu, is now most likely trapped around the Enlightenment Mountain and cannot get out for the time being. And most of their main forces are also stranded here, and the probability of the plan being blocked is also greater. If we can't get out within 5 days, will the Star Clan's strategy plan be blocked? Zhao He asked. Don't think too much for now. There is a long way to go. Even if we are blocked for a while, we still have a chance later. The biggest worry is that all 6 of us will be trapped here. That would be a bigger problem. As they spoke, the two continued to move forward, exploring this bottomless mysterious maze. At the same time, on the border star side, Lin Jianlong and others who were responsible for guarding the Stargate also received news that Qin Longquan and others had not heard from them since they entered the depths of the god-suppressing prison. The lunar entrance to the Enlightenment Mountain, Lin Jianlong pondered. Duanmu, do you remember the information we obtained when we explored the entrance to Saturn last time? Have you deciphered it? Duanmu Shang also received the news that Qin Longquan and others had lost contact, and wondered, what does this have to do with Lao Qin and the others? Lin Jianlong said, I suspected before that the Enlightenment Mountain we explored before might not be the normal entrance, or in other words, not the core entrance. Now that Lao Qin and the others have lost contact, and Heng Su'er is making such a fuss, I suspect that Heng Su'er has long known that the entrance in this Henshin prison is the real entrance to the Enlightenment Mountain. As for the entrance on Earth, perhaps it is just a prerequisite for the opening of the lunar entrance, or it is just a cover created by Heng Su'er and the ancestors of the Star Clan to show us. Duanmu Shuang pondered, do you suspect this is a setup? Yes, maybe the relationship between Heng Su'er and the ancestors of the Star Clan is not what we speculated before. Lin Jianlong said, how about this? You should guard the Star Clan's gate carefully these days. I will go find Yan, solve Lao Zhang's problem first, and then interrogate the clone of the Star Clan's ancestor. Duanmu Shang frowned and said, I am the only one left. If the news leaks out, I can't resist for too long, Lin Jianlong said decisively. Now that things have come to this, there is nothing to hesitate. Yan has not come back yet, and I also suspect that something has happened to her. If several of our strongest people have encountered accidents in succession, this is definitely not an ordinary event. There may even be some mysterious power at work, and the problem is that we still know nothing about it. I think we have to put off the attack on the Star Clan. Maybe once we fight, we will be wiped out. If you really can't hide it, you can retreat and lead the army back to the border star, wait until our rear is stable, and then come back again. These words made Duanmu Shuang's heart sink. Lin Jianlong has always been known for his ability to predict things, and he has demonstrated this in many past battles. Now that Lin Jianlong said this, I'm afraid that the war between humans and the Star Clan could really be reversed if things go wrong. I understand. Go ahead and bring Yan back as soon as possible, and let her solve Zhang Shengfang's problem. All problems depend on the Star Clan's ancestor. Duan Mushuang waved his hand and shouted, Lin Jianlong, the lives and property of mankind depend on you alone. Don't shrink at the critical moment. Lin Jianlong chuckled. Duan Mu, the Boulder Star is handed over to you. Don't die. Chapter 389 Interrogation. 3 hours later, Li Yi and Tan Yaozu took the Thunder Pond as the starting point and ran eastward for thousands of kilometers, but they did not gain anything along the way. Li Yi, I'm afraid that we can't just run like this. How about we try to thaw out his body and interrogate the third-era resurrectionist you mentioned to see if we can get some clues, Tan Yaozu suggested. Okay, running aimlessly is really not a good idea. Li Yi threw the ice block on his shoulder aside. Before, he didn't have Tan Yaozu with him, and it was indeed not easy to control this third-era resurrectionist alone. But now that he has teammates and has comprehended the divine will and can hurt the soul, he can consider forcing this third-era resurrectionist out. If he can get some information from this guy, it will indeed reduce many problems. As he spoke, Li Yi activated the burning electric property and directly thawed Guangzi's body. Brother Tan, you guard that side and refine the divine will in advance. Don't let him run away, okay, Zizi. The burning electric characteristic was constantly activated on this ice block, and soon, the ice outside Guangzi's body slowly melted. Li Yi's freezing wave has already used the power of conceptual freezing, which is extraordinary. His burning electric characteristic is still blessed with some divine power, which quickly thaws. Moreover, if he does not have the power of divine will, he may not even be able to release the characteristic in this environment. It can be seen that the mastery of divine will also enriches his means. Although he cannot release the power of various characteristics too far, it can at least increase the possibility of saving his life. However, the freeze he left on Guangzi's body was very fierce, and it took more than 10 minutes to slowly thaw it. A total of 18 frozen layers were frozen, and they were tightly inside and out. At this moment, when the third-to-last layer was thawed, Li Yi immediately sensed that the soul microelectricity on Guangzi's head was rapidly active. After a few efforts, this soul in Guangzi's head seemed to light up a large area of stars, shining brightly, showing an extremely strong soul strength, which was very amazing. It can only be said that he is worthy of being a powerful resuscitator who has been exempted from Li Yi's freezing power several times. During this period of freezing, he has already adapted to the deformation of his brain organs and can flexibly activate them. It seems that even if Li Yi does not take the initiative to thaw, this guy will probably be able to revive on his own if he persists for a while. Brother Tan, this resuscitator has awakened. Remember to take action at any time, okay? When the last layer was thawed and there was not much ice left outside the body, Guangzi's eyes suddenly opened, and an amazing divine light suddenly appeared in his eyes. In a flash, Li Yi's palm had already touched the top of Guangzi's head at the same time, and the power of subtle vibration was activated at the same time. Shock. This is exactly the gene reversal technique he developed before. In an instant, the characteristics of the third-era armored man outside Guangzi's body quickly showed signs of regression. However, this resuscitator seemed to have anticipated Li Yi's means, and did not show any stiffness of the flesh. Instead, he moved his palm and swung his hand to hit Li Yi. Li Yi did not move, but continued to operate, launching a subtle tremor to reverse the genetic transformation of Li Guangzi's body. At this moment, the role of teammates was reflected. I saw Tan Yaozu standing aside, suddenly attacked, and caught his wrist first. Snap! Seeing this, the resuscitator raised his foot and kicked again. Li Yi jumped up, and his palm was still stuck on the top of his head, without separating. Tan Yaozu came to the opposite position and suddenly punched Guangzi's ankle. Bang! With Tan Yaozu's current physical strength at the level of the strongest, it is natural that Guangzi's current physical body is crushed. He made a swift move, and in a few seconds, Guangzi's physical body was pressed under him. Li Yi supported Guangzi's head with his palm and continued to launch the gene reversal technique. The resuscitator seemed to want to open his mouth to launch the divine energy cannon, but he did not expect that the divinity in this place was completely suppressed, and there was no space to use it at all. He could only struggle and scream. But he was still firmly held down by Tan Yaozu, with no chance to break free. This lasted for more than 10 minutes, and Li Yi's gene reversal technique became more and more proficient, and the cry of the reviver gradually weakened. The scaled skin, limb shape, and various characteristics of the reviver from the third era were gradually restored to the appearance of He Guangzi. Until the end, Li Yi restored He Guangzi's brain organ to its original state. Then, he injected the Thunder God sequence divine will into his head, and continued to gather, hitting the soul where the reviver was. As for He Guangzi's soul, because Li Yi had nailed his soul into the thought steel seal before, and Li Yi deliberately avoided this area, it did not affect him. After a while, Li Yi stopped and said in the common language of the third era, "Reviver from the third era, your soul has been weakened by more than half by me. Do you still plan to seize our companions now?" There was no response. Tanyaozu said, "Li Yi, are you speaking the language of the third era?" "Yes, what's wrong?" "Nothing, I'm just curious about when you learned it. I remember that I didn't decipher much language information in this area before. I don't know much about the language of the third era. I just kept the relevant information in my mind," Li Yi explained. "If we can get the corresponding corpus information from this guy later, we can basically decipher most of it." "Okay, you are a deciphering expert. You have the final say." While speaking, Li Yi continued to put his palm on He Guangzi's head, gathering the divine will of the Thunder God sequence to it, constantly weakening his soul, and interspersed some questions in between. But in the end, this guy still didn't answer a word. Li Yi looked at it, and it was obvious that this guy's mouth should have been thawed, which was really strange. Could it be that this guy was willing to sit back and watch his soul being weakened? After a while, Tanyaozu frowned and said, "I say, could it be because you reverse all these genes that this guy basically lost control of old He's body and couldn't say anything even if he wanted to?" Li Yi was speechless, as if this was not impossible. According to the situation when he fought with this guy before, this guy's combat power was mostly affected by the degree of transformation of his body's genes. After thinking for a moment, he immediately reversed He Guangzi's body genes again, reversed the changes in his mouth, tongue, throat, and part of the brain organ area that controlled speech, and transformed it into the genetic characteristics of the third era armored man. Since he recorded He Guangzi's genetic information, he naturally recorded the information that the Resurrector had transformed at that time. It is difficult for others to reverse it, but it is simple for him. "Brother He, don't blame me if there is anything strange. I will turn it back to you later." He silently said a few words in his heart, and soon, He Guangzi's body showed the characteristics of the third era armored man, which surprised Tanyaozu. At the same time, the Resurrector finally spoke. Chapter 390 Clues. The Resuscitator said, "Don't use God's will to hurt my soul anymore. If my soul is further weakened, it will not be good for you. I know you want to leave the Enlightenment Mountain, right?" When these words came out, both of them were stunned. Because the language spoken by the Resuscitator was not the language of the third era, but the current language of mankind. Tanyaozu frowned and said, "How can you speak our human language?" The Resuscitator smiled and said, "Do you think I was awakened by the Enlightenment Mountain? Wrong, I have been lurking in He Guang's flesh for a long time, but none of you know it." Tanyaozu was shocked and looked at Li Yi. "This is impossible. Old He's ability to refine God's will has been trained long ago. It is impossible that he can't find you." Haha. The Resuscitator smiled and said, "In my hands, nothing is impossible in this world. What's more, a weakling who is not even at the gold level, I don't want him to find it if I want him not to find it." Li Yi narrowed his eyes. "You are lying, you don't have such ability. If you had been lurking in old He's body for a long time, you wouldn't have spent so much time here, bombarding him with various lightning and thunder to transform his physical genes," the Resurrected said lightly. "You don't have to lie to me, this is the fact." Li Yi smiled. "No, I'm not lying to you. Judging from the vibration of your soul at a subtle level, about 9 out of 10 of what you said just now are true and 1 is false. You said a lot, but you just want to cover up a truth that you don't want us to notice. That is, you want us to choose between two situations. Either you have been lurking in Brother He's body for a long time, or you have just infiltrated Brother He's body not long ago. Let us subconsciously choose only between these two situations and ignore the real situation. That is, although you have been lurking in Brother He's body for a long time, what you lurked before was just an extremely subtle clone. The strength is very low and weak, and it is not easy to be noticed. It was not until we came to the Enlightenment Mountain that your revival was triggered. Even the you in front of us is not the complete body, But only a suppressed part, right? Do you know that your biggest problem is that you have poor control over Lao He's body? Such a high-level soul actually needs to transform its genes into the state of the third-era armored man in order to exert greater combat power. Don't you think this is a big problem? You don't really think that we still know nothing about what kind of capabilities and technologies your third-era civilization has? No way, no way. Listening to Li Yi's slightly joking words, the face of the resuscitator gradually darkened. Tanyaozu's heart moved and he thought about something. Because Li Yi was also transmitting a message to him while asking questions, explaining Li Yi's judgment. According to Li Yi, this resuscitator may have used some means to release some kind of mark on He Guangzi a long time ago. As long as He Guangzi approaches the entrance area of the Enlightenment Mountain, he will be noticed by him at the first time, and he will send out a clone and attack instantly. When everyone drove the divine mecha into the Guotao mountain and triggered a certain armor removal mechanism, He Guangzi was discovered and was found and controlled by the Resurrectionist's clone at the first time. And He Guangzi was the first to enter the comet path. Therefore, not long after everyone separated, He Guangzi disappeared quickly and arrived at a floating island area of the Guotao mountain first. It was there that his erosion became more and more serious and he began to resist violently. If Li Yi and his friends had not found him at the first time, He Guangzi would undoubtedly be completely eroded and become the Resurrectionist's clone. If Li Yi had hesitated a little more when he was fighting this guy, I'm afraid that the Resurrectionist would have succeeded long ago. Upon hearing this, Tanyaozu felt a little more scared. This Resurrectionist is indeed hard to guard against. If you are not careful, a powerful high-level Cheyenne Wei will die. The Resurrectors are truly a formidable enemy that mankind has to face. For their own revival, they have done so much to trick our human masters. There was Hizundao in front and Lao He in the back. It looks like if we want to get out successfully this time, we still have to do a careful investigation, Tanyaozu replied slowly. Li Yu nodded, stretched out his hand and patted the face of the resuscitator, stimulated his soul with the Thunder God sequence, and said with a smile, from your appearance, your body should be suppressed somewhere in the Guotao Divine Mountain? Or you must rely on the Guotao Divine Mountain to survive such a long time, right? Tell me, where's your body, and how to get out of this Guotao Divine Mountain? Why, you are not going to speak yet? Do you know that even if you don't tell me, I can find it? It's just that it will waste more time. To be honest, I'm only 20 years old, and I don't mind wasting time with you, because the longer the time drags on, the more invincible I will be. Understand? The resuscitator was silent for a long time, and slowly said, young man, since your mind-reading ability is so powerful, why don't you continue to read my mind? Li Yu narrowed his eyes. It seems that the resuscitator has also discovered Li Yu's method. That is, stimulate its soul through language and thunder and lightning divine will, perceive its brain wave fluctuations through microscopic perception ability, summarize its fluctuation characteristics, and then decipher its conscious activities. This trick is also the semi-mind reading technique that Li Yi has mastered for a long time. With a perfect level decryption skill as the foundation and the 50 nanometers of subtle perception as the measure, he cracked the opponent's psychological activities step by step. However, this move obviously requires the opponent not to be aware of it. If he is aware of it, forcibly concentrating his mind will interfere with Li Yi's judgment. Immediately, Li Yi did not hesitate to strengthen the strength of the divine will in his palm and continuously invade the opponent's soul. Although the strength of his divine will was weakened a lot in this oppressive environment. But Li Yi's current understanding of the divine will of the Thunder God sequence is very deep. After some attempts, he found a way to stimulate the soul more strongly. Soon, these divine wills rushed away like a tide. Even if you force your mind to be concentrating, it's useless. As long as I keep the impact on your soul, you can't hold it, Brother Tan. Hold him tighter, this guy is likely to brew a sudden outbreak. Small problem, watch me. Hearing this, Tanyaozu grinned. And the reverse entropy accumulated in his body was released by him. The strength of the physical body increased again in an instant, tightening the body of the resurrected. Although his divinity and characteristics were completely suppressed and could not be released, it was still okay to use a small part of his characteristics in his body. With Tanyaozu's outburst, the resistance of the resuscitator's soul was obviously weakened. And Li Yi also obtained a lot of information and intelligence on the resuscitator's consciousness activities. Chapter 391 Resurgence. Li Yi's eyes lit up. The resuscitator finally couldn't hold on any longer and transmitted a large amount of information like a leak. In a short while, Liu figured out a lot of information. Put more effort, Liu gave Tanyaozu a look, and Tanyaozu understood immediately and increased his strength. Ah! The resuscitator cried out in pain. Tanyaozu's close-fitting stranglehold was really powerful. The corresponding brain nerves that Liu reversed back to him also felt the same pain, which was then fed back to the soul. Liu looked at him and asked a bunch of questions, constantly inducing him, and finally squeezed the soul of the resuscitator dry to the point of dying. The consumption was huge. He sent a voice transmission, "Brother Tan, put more effort, let's just grind his soul to death, so that we can make room for Brother He. Do you have all the information?" Tanyaozu sent a voice transmission reply. "We have mastered most of it. Even if there is still some left, we can't get anything out of it. Let's just increase the intensity." Immediately, the two of them took a two-pronged approach, torturing the body and the soul at the same time, constantly wearing it away, and this lasted for more than a whole day. Although the soul of this resurrectee was only a clone, it was very strong in nature. It was constantly being worn away by Liu's Thunder God sequence divine will, but it still had the ability to resist. Fortunately, after a whole day, the soul finally became smaller and smaller, and the two of them were wearing it away faster and faster. Not only that, Liu also gained a lot of unexpected information. His original goal was to obtain the corresponding information mainly about the Enlightenment Mountain, but now, he has also gained a lot of technical knowledge about the Third Era. The core technology of the Third Era is mainly the armor of the divine Mecha and the biological Mecha technology. In this regard, Liu had previously obtained some bionic nerve technology and bionic limb technology on the Enlightenment Mountain, and had a certain foundation for this. Although the knowledge mastered by this resurrectee was relatively messy, it was not bad, allowing him to complete part of it. I believe that in the future, this can effectively improve the industrialization level of this part of technology on the human side, and greatly improve the level of human mecha industry. If we can build a large number of divine mechas that are truly suitable for humans, then the characteristics of large numbers of humans and high average intelligence level will be able to play a huge advantage. About a day and a half later, the soul of the resurrected was finally worn out completely, without even a spark left. The two tried again and confirmed that this guy had indeed been annihilated, then they adjusted their postures with confidence and jumped off He Guangzi's body. It's really not easy to deal with this guy. By the way, Liu, is this guy sure to have a stronger original body? Tanyaozu panted. Liu said, yes, this guy's original body is a supreme-level strongman who fled to Guotao Mountain 1,000 years before the disaster at the end of the Third Era. Supreme level? Tanyaozu was stunned. Is this the same level as the supreme level of the Second and First Eras? Liu thought for a moment and said, in theory, the supreme is the top powerhouse of each era. Then the Third Era is the weakest in comprehensive strength and comprehensive civilization strength among these 5 eras. I estimate that the supreme-level strongman of the Third Era is about above the quasi-god, and is still a long way from the true god. It can only be regarded as half of the supreme in other eras. According to Liu's current cognition and various past materials, it can be determined that the true god is the highest level. The second is the master level of the First Era. This is a separate level below the true god, and only appeared in the First Era. The 4 eras of the later generations, including their current nascent 6th Era, have not yet seen this level of strong man. According to the memory obtained by Liu, this group of masters of the First Era is also the culprit who is very likely to cause many mysteries in the various eras of divinity. In terms of strength ranking, the next is the supreme class of the First and Second Eras. Next is the supreme class of the Fifth Era, then the supreme class of the Fourth Era, and then the supreme class of the Third Era, followed by quasi-gods, demigods, and the strongest. Although the top powerhouses of each era have not been compared in terms of their specific strength, their respective strengths can be roughly determined from the types and strengths of their respective characteristics. Of course, this is not an absolute level division. It is also possible that in the Third Era, there will be 1 or 2 supreme classes whose strength can beat the supreme class of the Fourth and Fifth Eras, or even the supreme class of the Second Era. But in general, the difference in hard power between the supreme classes of each era is relatively obvious. The supreme class of the First and Second Eras is just hard. The strongest class below this can only be regarded as the pinnacle of the inhuman, and is far from truly entering the realm of God. It is also far from being as terrifying as Dan Chenli, who froze himself for billions of years. The beginning of demigod is the beginning of the transition from human to God. In this realm, God's will is the core of the battle, which is equivalent to having higher energy and higher dimensional perception. Just like this resurrector, although it was only a small clone that had just been resurrected for a short time, it mastered the ability to transform genes and mobilize the characteristics of the strongest lightning, which almost put Li Yi in a dead end. It can be seen that in ancient times, there were not necessarily many strong people everywhere, but those who could survive or even successfully resurrect must have some amazing strength and unique skills. Supreme level, so scary, Tanyeozu sighed, we humans don't even have a demigod. I really don't know what we should do if these top strong people want to resurrect in the future. There must be a way out when the car reaches the mountain. At most, it will be a 1,000-year disaster and we will all perish together. Don't worry, Brother Tan. Moreover, the strongest can only live for 1 or 2,000 years, which is not much different from the time of the disaster. There is no need to worry too much. Tanyeozu was speechless. Although Li Yi was right, why did he sound so awkward? Then what? Does this guy have a way to escape from the Enlightenment Mountain? Yes, and there is more than one way. Hearing this, Tanyeozu's eyes lit up. That's good. Let's revive old he first. And then you can tell me in detail. Li Yi nodded, and at the same time activated the Thunder God sequence Divine Will, which penetrated into He Guangxi's head and washed towards the thought stamp. At the same time, the deformation characteristics were used to restore the shape of Li Guangxi's brain organ. Both steps must be done carefully to avoid mistakes. If any step goes wrong, when He Guangxi's soul is released, the soul will be drastically weakened in an instant. Even Li Yi was extremely cautious this time. 5 minutes later, with a light sound, the thought stamp broke, and He Guangxi's bound soul was immediately liberated and penetrated into his brain organ. He Guangxi slowly opened his eyes and looked up to see Li Yi and Tanyeozu. He looked at the two and laughed. It seems that I am lucky. I can still survive in this situation. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 392, Bodybuilding. Tanyeozu snorted, old he, your fame is almost ruined here. The future strategic commander of the Xingyu Federation was defeated by a soul mark. He has been busy these 2 days, but he doesn't plan to let He Guangxi go. Every failure makes you wiser. He Guangxi was calm and smiled. Every time I survive a desperate situation, it is a precious asset. After I recover, I can also break through to the strongest. I have to thank Li Yi for his accurate judgment. Old Tan, you are just an assistant, so don't say too much. Tanyeozu was speechless, but he didn't say anything more and stood up. Okay, at least you have used your body to induce the clone of a supreme-level strong man, and let Li Yi get the information that can lead to the way out, so I won't say much about you. Li Yi coughed lightly and said, you too, let me first tell you about the information I got. First of all, there are currently 3 known ways to get out. First, find the trial area. As long as you reach the 5th level, you can gain control of this section of the Enlightenment Mountain and be teleported out. Second, use your powerful force to resist the cyclone of the Enlightenment Mountain, go upstream, and walk to the end, which is the exit. Third, this Supreme Pu'ing from the 3rd era once left a hidden entrance and exit in the Enlightenment Mountain. We can find this entrance and exit and teleport out. The two nodded repeatedly after hearing this. Pu'ing Supreme, yes, that's how the name translates to. How many clones does Pu'ing Supreme have? Not sure, but it's probably not easy. It seems that this Supreme is still unable to move freely outside a specific area. That's okay. It's okay as long as there are restrictions. If there really is a terrifying existence of this level who wants to mess with us, we currently have almost no power to fight back. Tanyeozu is not pessimistic. He just has a clear understanding of the strength of the human side. He Guangxi is taking the time to recover, and he mainly talks to Li Yi about Tanyeozu. The third method is obviously not very effective. What if it is a trap set by this clone and we are led there? It seems that we can only start from the first and second ways. Let's take the first way for now. There is detailed information about a level, and this level is relatively simpler for us. If we can take partial control of the Wudao Divine Mountain, It will be convenient for us to find Qin Bangcheng and his men. Yes, but where did Lao Qin and his men go? How did they disappear? In this regard, Li Yi shook his head and said, it should be a trap set by Hang Suer, and it has nothing to do with a clone of the Supreme Puang. As he said, Li Yi looked at Yi Guangzi and said, Brother He, after you recover, I will help you to strengthen your body. It just so happens that I also need to refer to the details of the physical transformation after the Thunder God sequence is promoted to the strongest. He Guangzi nodded and did not refuse. He has now found the opportunity, but because his body has not fully recovered, the transformation progresses slower. If Li Yi can give a push, it will naturally be good. Li Yi is also looking forward to it. With the help of the Zilu shedding method, he completed his new version of the Thunder Forging method and mastered the ability of body forging and thunder and lightning charging. Especially the thunder and lightning charging. Although it is single energy and cannot absorb all kinds of free energy after the ship transformation. But with the essence of thunder and lightning charging, he can easily complete the micro-introduction, so that the body has an absorption and storage efficiency that is several times higher than other methods. Now that Yi Guangzi is about to be promoted to the strongest, he can definitely learn from it. If he is a little less lucky, he can improve the progress of body forging, and improve the thunder forging method and optimize its efficiency. If he is luckier, there may be other gains. Therefore, he is responsible for helping Yi Guangzi to forge his body. In this way, the two of them started the process of body forging directly on the barren and empty ground. The first body forging method is naturally the thunder forging method, not the Sea King shedding method or the Yishan forging micro method. Li Yi adjusted his breathing, first using the Thunder God sequence divine will to resist the suppression around his body, so that his own characteristics can be maximized, and then directly launched the 3.2 burst skill. Boom. In an instant, he opened his mouth to breathe, and purple-green electricity rose, and the airwaves rolled. The amazing breath burst out from his body and spread to the surroundings. This is a special environment with 100 times gravity. Breathing can have such an effect, which really surprised the two. Tanyaozu couldn't help but say, good guy, you are also suppressed in divinity and characteristics, unable to release them, but I didn't expect you to be so calm. Li Yi smiled slightly, Brother Tan, you are joking. As long as you can control the divine will with fighting skills instead of refining the divine will from divinity, it will definitely be much easier. Tanyaozu said, okay, I know you are good. Let's start quickly. I will protect you, Laohi, you are different from me. I was desperate at the beginning. If I didn't break through, I would die. Although you don't have any worries, you will lose a bit of your courageous and diligent mentality. Don't relax too much and overturn. He has gone through the process once, so he naturally knows how much help Li Yi's bodybuilding method can provide. If Yi Guangzi had clearly grasped the opportunity to break through, but had not been able to use Li Yi to break through in one fell swoop, delaying them for a lot of time, he would not be polite to Yi Guangzi. On the ground, the sound of two people forging at high speed soon came out. Snap! 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 As expected, the thunder forging method is indeed very suitable for Yi Guangzi. Just 10 minutes later, Yi Guangzi's transformation began. I saw that the muscles in his body were constantly beating, and the fine arcs and the muscle fibers were constantly flowing, penetrating deeply into his body. Crackling, crackling. Li Yi directly resisted the pressure with divine will, and some of his divinity could be stimulated, so he injected it into the nano-sensor, directly pulling the microscopic sensing accuracy to 1 nanometer. Although the current limit of his subtle strength is 50 nanometers, this time it is just a record, although it consumes a lot of brain power in a short period of time. But after several times of becoming stronger, he can already record these details of the transformation relatively easily. Compared with the previous few times, his body forging method, this time, will definitely go a step further and reach a more wonderful realm. In a blink of an eye, 3 hours had passed since Li Yi trained Yi Guangzi. This time was much longer than that of Tanyaozu and Lu Yunsheng. Li Yi knew that this was the advantage brought by Yi Guangzi's own perfect divine control. Although his combat power was slightly inferior to Lu Yunsheng due to the number and total amount of his heavenly tricks, he was stronger in terms of divine control. This was also very good news for Li Yi, because this meant that the detailed information about the transformation he obtained from Yi Guangzi would be richer and more comprehensive. Finally, after the 3.5 hours, Yi Guangzi's transformation finally ended. Although there was almost no abnormality of his transformation due to the 100 times gravity and divine suppression, Li Yi and Tan Yaozu could clearly feel that the aura displayed by He Guangzi was undoubtedly a little stronger than that of Tan Yaozu. Chapter 393 Golden Glory. Good fellow, your strength has increased so much. Tan Yaozu's eyes widened, and he felt as if he was afraid that his brother would suffer, but also afraid that his brother would drive a Land Rover. He Guangzi smiled slightly. This is thanks to Li Yi. According to my observation, his bodybuilding method has been improved a lot compared to the previous times. Old Tan, there is no need to envy, at least you have enjoyed the benefits of the strongest level earlier than me, right? How is it? How does it feel to become the strongest one earlier? Haha, don't you mean to say that even if I get promoted one step earlier than you, I will still be surpassed by you later? Humph, Tan Yaozu was too lazy to pay attention to He Guangzi. If he chatted for a few more words, he was afraid that He Guangzi's nose would be raised to the sky. Let's go, two brothers, it's almost time, let's challenge the level first. I already know the specific route, it takes at least 30,000 kilometers from here, and it will take a lot of time at our current speed. When Li Yi said this, the two of them were immediately solemn. After half a day, the three of them appeared in front of an ordinary little valley. However, because the surrounding area is all endless flat land, the sudden appearance of a small valley is indeed eye-catching. This is a portal that can bypass the first level and go directly to the second level trial level, Li Yi introduced. What is the content of this second level trial? He Guangzi asked. According to the intelligence, it is likely that the second level tests fighting skills, the third level tests divine control skills, the fourth level tests soul strength, and the fifth level is a maze that tests comprehensive ability. Then let's go together now and play a three-person team battle. Almost. Okay, let's go. The three of them stepped into the valley and suddenly felt a terrifying space-time force suddenly appear, suppressing everyone's head. Boom. Accompanied by a violent sonic boom, the three people were instantly unable to move, and after a while, they disappeared on the spot. Swish. The feeling of this teleportation process is not similar to the starship's jump process, it is more rough and direct. The three people felt dizzy, and before they knew it, the scene in front of them was different. After a while, the three of them gradually recovered from the chaotic space-time perception and opened their eyes. During the transmission, each of them raised their spirits to the utmost, but they still couldn't resist a fierce space-time transmission. The reason why they felt mentally confused was not because the distance of the space-time transmission was far, but because they received excessive space-time information during the transmission. These space-time information were like a knife piercing the soul, which was completely different from the process of accepting knowledge, full of stiffness and roughness. Therefore, even if everyone's strength was already very strong, it still took some time to recover. Among them, Li Yi performed relatively well. Because he had a time branch book and obtained a lot of space-time operation skills from the parallel memory fragments of Liming Tu Yi, he recovered the fastest. Moreover, he also recorded the corresponding space-time information and learned some from this transmission. Tan Yaozu and He Guangzi woke up one after another. Facing the space-time characteristics, Tan Yaozu's coordination characteristics have a certain countervailing power. This time he killed He Guangzi's Zia Chao. However, the three of them had no intention of comparing, because a huge voice appeared. The second level trial of the Enlightenment Mountain has begun. 3 participants are now being tested. Please choose single-player challenge mode or team battle mode. This was obviously the language of the first era. Li Yi replied directly, team battle. Team battle mode has been confirmed. This level is a fighting game. The battlefield is randomly selected as the 3-day bloody battle between the young Jin Yaozu and the 100 God Guards. This battle was the famous Battle of Jin Yaozu in his youth and can be rated as one of the 100 classic battles of the first era. Requirement: kill the 100 God Guards of the same level with pure fighting skills within half a day. Note that the 100 God Guards are the guards of the Wu Wei Temple. They have survived thousands of battles and have cultivated several demigods and quasi-god level strongmen. They have a deep foundation. Please pay attention to using skills and wisdom to defeat your opponents. Note that this is your first challenge. If you fail 3 times in a row, your soul will be directly extracted to enter the Wudao Divine Mountain and become a gatekeeper soul. Please pay attention to the time limit. Exceeding the time limit will be regarded as a challenge failure. In addition to Li Yi's proficiency in the language of the first era, He Guangzi and Tan Yaozu, as high-level human strongmen, naturally learn some basics after the experts obtain the deciphered corpus information. Now they can naturally understand the content of one or two grand voices. But the problem is that this content seems a bit too outrageous. We have to deal with 100 strong men of the same level in one go, and it's the famous battle of the master of the first era. Tanyaozu was surprised. He Guangzi frowned. It shouldn't be so outrageous. This is about the 100 guards. Maybe we only need to defeat one. While they were discussing, 3 2-meter-tall armored men emerged from the ground in front of the 3 people and condensed into shape. It can be seen that these armored men have the classic second-era armored men style, and their overall appearance is more like armored men transformed from insect creatures. Not only that, the environment around them also changed suddenly. From an ordinary barren plain, it turned into a meteor group. In addition to the 3 armored men near the 3 people, there were other armored men not far away who appeared in other meteors, looking at the medium-sized meteor they were standing on. It's interesting. Isn't the Xingyu master a figure from the first era? How come his opponent has armored men from the second era? Tanyaozu asked curiously. He Guangzi touched his chin and said, most likely the armored people are the intelligent creatures that survived the first era and became the dominant species in the second era. Or it is also possible that the dominant species in the first and second eras are all armored people. Li Yu said, the armored people are coming to kill us, 2 brothers. Should we fight each other in pairs, or attack them separately? He Guangzi was good at arranging battle formations, and he said without hesitation. Since Wu Dao Shinshin has reminded that there are many demigod-level powerhouses among these 100 god guards, it means that their fighting foundation is not weak, and they are at least as powerful as flowing water. Old Tan and I are still a little inferior. In this case, you, Li Yu, will be the leader. Let's form a 3-in-1 formation and deal with them together. We have other trials later, and we should also go out in combination to give full play to our respective advantages. Tanyaozu nodded and said, although I am unwilling, I have to admit that when it comes to fighting skills, it depends on you, Li Yi. I agree with the 3-in-1 formation. The 3-in-1 formation is a combined attack method that mecha masters must learn. Basically, as long as they are properly trained, they will be able to do it. Although the 3 of them do not have mechas on them at the moment, each of them has an amazing physical body and has power comparable to that of mechas, so it is suitable. Chapter 394 Divine Body. The 3 formed a 3-in-1 formation and suddenly collided with a 3-member group of Beishanwei who were charging at them. Boom. This place was still under 100 times the gravity. The 3 people's faces changed slightly at the moment of the first wave of collision. The physical strength of these 3 Beishanwei was actually at the same level as them, but the strength of their armor was obviously better. The first wave of collision did not cause any physical damage to the opponent, but was instead repelled by their armor. Fuck, these guys' armor is ridiculously hard. Tanyaozu was on the flank and punched the armor of the armored man, only to feel that it was unusually hard. The divinity and characteristics were suppressed here, and he only had a pure power style of attack, which did not cause any damage to the armored man. Instead, a powerful needle-piercing force was repelled, which made Tanyaozu's wrist numb and had to bounce back. The armored man seized the opportunity and kicked him in the face, and was about to destroy their combined formation. The other half, Li Yu, filled in the position and hit back with a subtle needle force. Bang! The 50-nanometer level subtle force worked, and the armored man retreated immediately. Li Yu looked around and found that there was no crack in the opponent's armor. It can be seen that although his 50-nanometer level subtle force was fierce, the opponent was not much weaker. Although he was at a disadvantage, he had a way to resolve the damage caused by this move. However, when Li Yu filled in the position, he Guangzi had to deal with the pressure of the 200 god guards. In this way, he was under greater pressure. After a few moves, he was struggling to parry. Obviously, the strength of these 300 god guards was even more outrageous than everyone expected. Surprisingly, each of them mastered the subtle force. Although the accuracy was not as good as Li Yi, under the 3-in-1 formation, Li Yi and the other 2 were also difficult to maintain. Moreover, they also had their own combined attack tactics, and they cooperated more skillfully than Li Yi and the other 2. Bang! 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 The Bai Shenwei had a grim face and struck like lightning, beating the 3 men back step by step. Although the 3 had experienced many battles, this opponent was obviously of a higher overall level. It was also because of their slightly insufficient wisdom that the 3 did not lose quickly. Tanyaozu was unwilling to accept this kind of battle performance, and immediately shouted loudly, directly stimulating the reverse entropy in his body and stimulating the explosive skills. Come and die, if one punch can't penetrate, then 2 punches, 10 punches. Tanyaozu's breath surged, and he suddenly withstood the pressure and bombarded his opponent. Li Yu's pressure was reduced, his body shook, and the lightning power in his body was continuously released, accumulated on his fist, and blessed the fist power. Although he did not use the explosive skills, in the battle, he had been trying to optimize the details of the transformation obtained from He Guangzi and optimize his new version of the thunder forging method. Due to the previous many experiences, he was much more efficient this time. As he continued to mobilize the large amount of lightning power stored in his body was constantly strengthened, and his strength became more and more amazing. Coupled with this subtle power of 50 nanometers, he was already better than the opponent in front of him. Soon, he made a series of attacks, and when he hit the 8th punch, he broke the armored man's chest armor. The cracked armor plates under the armored man's chest armor also fell to the ground, revealing dark green soft flesh. Li Yu made another punch, hitting the exposed muscle. Bang! The breaking skill. The breaking skill, which was launched with subtle strength, produced an amazing explosive effect in an instant. With one punch, the armored man's chest exploded directly, splashing a little green blood. With a ticking sound, the armored man fell to the ground and turned into smoke and dissipated. The first kill, completed. Li Yu made room and did not go to help Tanyaozu, but killed He Guangzi's opponent. He Guangzi naturally had a means of explosion. But everyone tacitly let Tanyaozu explode. Because there are still 3 trials to come, if all the trump cards are used in one breath, then when the physical strength is insufficient later, the consequences will be more serious. Therefore, He Guangzi still just parried blindly in the face of this powerful 100 god guards. It's a pity that the 3-man formation of 3 people can't match the opponent's formation. Otherwise, there would be no need to turn into such a head-on fight. On the battlefield, due to Tanyaozu's sudden burst, Li Yu broke the deadlock, and there was not much suspense in the remaining battles. About 20 minutes later, the 3 armored men completely turned into smoke and disappeared. Even the blood that had been splashed before disappeared quietly without knowing when. As the last armored man disappeared, the 3 of them breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, although this level is difficult, with Li Yi, a fierce man, at least they passed it. After finishing this level, the sound of the trial had not yet come out, but He Guangzi looked at Li Yu with a somewhat straight look. Li Yu was looked at inexplicably, and couldn't help but touch his face and said, "Brother He, is there something on my face?" He Guangzi stared at Li Yu and said, "No, do you know that I just saw a very incredible thing on you?" "What is it?" Tanyaozu asked curiously. "It's the prototype of the Thunder God's body," He Guangzi said loudly, his expression slightly excited. The Thunder God's body. Li Yu's heart moved slightly, and he said, "Brother He means the one that can transform into lightning and move quickly like Hang Su'er." He had seen Hang Su'er use this move before, and he was almost defeated. If he hadn't found a way to pull the battlefield to the floating island with strong suppression power later, Li Yu might not be able to defeat this guy in turn. As for now, even if it is just a regular battlefield, as long as he can pull it to a close combat, he will have a chance to kill Hang Su'er. But if Hang Su'er seizes the opportunity to escape, it may be difficult to catch up. He didn't chase Hang Su'er at the first time because he was worried that Hang Su'er's speed after transforming into lightning was too fast. He Guangzi nodded and said, "That's right. Wind, fire, thunder and ice are classic moves of the 4 common sequences, namely the body of the wind god, the body of the fire god, the body of the thunder god, and the body of the ice god. These 4 moves are the peak moves of their respective sequences. They require the use of divine will and divinity, and even the affinity of the physical body to different characteristics to reach a certain level before they can be used." Tanyaozu had just exploded, so he didn't pay much attention to the details of Li Yu's battle. Hearing this, he was shocked and said, "Fuck, are you saying that Li Yu has mastered this kind of top move that only demigods have the opportunity to master?" He Guangzi nodded, "Although it's just a prototype, I won't be wrong." Li Yu thought about it. It seems that it is very likely that the 2 versions of the thunder forging method he developed and iterated have caused changes in his body's cells while absorbing a large amount of thunder and lightning, and thus have a higher affinity for thunder and lightning. In addition, mastering divine will through fighting skills and perfect divine control should also have a layer of effect. However, He was busy fighting at the time and didn't feel much. Tanyaozu said enviously, even in its embryonic form it is already very impressive. The Thunder God's body is the strongest body among the 4 major divine bodies, possessing all 3 qualities of attack, defense and speed. Even the Fire God's body is at most slightly better in attack power, but is much inferior in speed. Chapter 395 Initiation. Although Li Yi didn't pay attention during the battle, now that he has more free time, he can review his memory and check some of his special changes. He immediately discovered that the so-called prototype of Li Guangzi should be that when he extracted the electricity in the cells and gathered it into his right fist, there was something wrong. At that time, not only was the strength of his arm stronger, but his skin was also faintly shining with electricity, as if he could turn into lightning at any time. Of course, this is an illusion. It is not yet completely in a state where it can turn into lightning, but it has only shown a trend. So this is the prototype of the Thunder God body. After I have practiced it well, I guess I can completely turn into lightning and turn all the cells in my body into plasma, he thought in his heart. He Guangzi said, Li Yi, the Thunder God body is a good thing. Since you already have a preliminary prototype, you might as well use it more and review it more. This is not only of great help to your combat power, but also has a great role in promoting your condensation of the Thunder God sequence divine gene. Okay, thank you for your reminder, brother he. As they spoke, the environment in front of them also changed. Obviously, the 3rd level of the Enlightenment Mountain is here. According to the information obtained from the clone of Supreme Puang, the test of this level should be divine control. A loud voice said, Congratulations on completing the trial task and killing the 100 divine guards with fighting skills. The total time taken to pass this level is 38 minutes, which is relatively fast and has a high evaluation. In view of your combat performance, each of you can get a chance to receive divine initiation. Please mobilize the divine will and summon the divine sequence that needs to be initiated. Note that you cannot mobilize multiple divine sequences. Those who violate this will be eliminated directly. The duration of the initiation is determined by your tolerance. Please make a decision as soon as possible within 3 minutes. The 3 looked at each other and were all a little surprised. Divine initiation? A reward that is 1 level higher than divine penetration, Tanyaozu said with a smile. It's really a surprise, he Guangzi said thoughtfully. It seems that this time it's thanks to you too. With your burst, it's easy to get a top evaluation. Moreover, the trial challenges we get here are probably more advanced than those obtained at other entrances, Tanyaozu said. It may also be the benefit of the team battle. After all, according to Lao Qin, the benefits of team battles are generally higher than those of individual challenges. The reason why Lao Qin and the other 3 stood out in their era may be that they have received initiation, he Guangzi said. It makes some sense. Lao Qin was very excited when he saw the entrance to Guotao Mountain before. It can be seen that they must have made a lot of money in the previous team battle. On the contrary, the accident in the middle of ours this time is unexpected. Li Yi also agreed with it too. He had seen this term in the past materials and roughly knew what divine initiation was. This thing is a level higher than the divine penetration he had experienced in the ruins of the earth before. 1 initiation can give the recipient an increase of at least 9 divine genes. That is, 1 initiation can save most evolvers 10 years of hard work. If you persist for a long time, you may be able to grow more divine genes. There should be some opportunities to obtain divine initiation in the ruins of the earth. But it is very difficult to obtain. Although Tanyaozu and He Guangzi are already the strongest, and the divine nucleus has been integrated into the strongest nucleus, to continue to grow, they still need to generate new divine genes, step by step, to generate new divine nuclei, and integrate them into this strongest nucleus. Moreover, this step needs to be repeated to generate at least 6 new divine nuclei, or 2 strongest nuclei, in order to accumulate enough foundation for the strongest nucleus and help the strongest to prove the demigod. That is, a total of 3 strongest nuclei have the foundation for a breakthrough. At this step, the time required is exponentially increasing. First, the amount of divine genes needs to be more, and second, the more the body receives divine radiation, the less likely it is to be transformed by divine radiation, and the more difficult it is to generate new divine genes. Therefore, this is also the core reason why the strongest people on the human side have not yet produced a demigod. The historical foundation of mankind is too shallow. The oldest strongest person is only about 300 years old. He has not accumulated enough foundation to break through the demigod. However, the three did not expect that the gift package they got in the Enlightenment Mountain would be so fierce. After all, they just defeated the 300 guards. Although they encountered many difficulties at the beginning, they did not spend much effort in essence. I don't know whether this is the benefit of the Enlightenment Mountain or because the performance of the three people is so powerful. Li Yu combined his previous experience in the Enlightenment Mountain, and most of it was due to his amazing breakthrough in strength. After all, his actual strength now has far exceeded that of himself when he first entered the Enlightenment Mountain. At this moment, the three did not hesitate, and each of them stimulated the divine will according to the requirements of the Grand Voice. The divine will that Li Yu chose this time was naturally the divine will of the Thunder God sequence. There is no other reason. Since he has mastered the prototype of the Thunder God body at this stage, he can naturally work hard in this area and strive to make a complete version of the Thunder God body. Rather than adding to the weaknesses, it is better to improve the strengths first. The other two naturally did not hesitate and chose their main cultivation, the coordination and Thunder God sequence. Although they had mastered a lot of other divinities in order to reach the 9th stage when they were in the heavenly position, but in essence, the existence of other divinities was to assist the main cultivation. Moreover, after being promoted to the strongest, all the divinities were combined into one, forming the main divinity. Although it lacked comprehensiveness, it was stronger than specialization. Therefore, their choice was naturally very decisive. Boom! On the ground, the three people's divine wills burst out, and soon triggered the initiation mechanism in the Enlightenment Mountain. Above the heads of the three people, the corresponding divinities suddenly gathered and continued to be injected like a whirlpool. Gurgle! Gurgle! The injection speed of these divinities was much slower than the gathering speed, and soon formed a liquefied state like an upgrade, suspended above the heads of the three people, constantly agitating and vibrating, which was very amazing. Li Yu's feelings were also different. With the injection of a large amount of Thunder God sequence divinity, the cells in the body seemed to be responding and trembling continuously. Then, the cells in his body began to vibrate spontaneously. The speed of injecting the divine nature of the Thunder God sequence was much faster, showing an injection speed several times faster than that of Tanyaozu and He Guangzi. Gurgle! In the blink of an eye, the Thunder God sequence divine genes in his body, which were already quite numerous, quickly split and generated under the stimulation of a large amount of divine nature. 1, 2, 3. Almost 1 per minute. Not only that, with the generation of divine genes, the corresponding physical enhancement also appeared. The joints became thicker and stronger, and the hardness was comparable to that of special alloys. The muscle fibers in various parts of the muscles were also growing, developing, and strengthening, like steel. Suddenly, Li Yu had an idea and injected some of his divine nature into the nanosensor. He wanted to see the details of his transformation under the growth of the divine genes. Chapter 396. Under the details of 1 nanometer precision, Li Yu saw a lot of changes in the genes in the body. The complexity of these changes is very high, so high that it is outrageous. After all, this is a complex information flow composed of billions of gene chains, which contains countless possibilities. Even if Li Yu is gifted, he can remember it as long as he sees it, and find the corresponding details in the dream plane. But he can't understand so many things at once. This is different from the transformation of the strongest body. The previous transformation of the body was mainly a transformation at the cellular level. He could easily understand the process and use subtle strength to reproduce it. He could even let Guangzi reverse the transformation of the body. But that was mainly because the transformation level was not deep enough. This time, the gene is a classic nanometer precision, and some even require 0.1 nanometer precision to decipher. And because humans still have many problems in interpreting genes and lack sufficient references, Li Yu can only try to remember it and try to decipher and interpret it with deciphering skills in the future. Only by interpreting what body shape and body characteristics each gene corresponds to, and determining which body details, can there be a correspondence. Only then can he subsequently replicate the transformation of the divine gene on the flesh. This step will take a lot of time. Li Yu did not want to eat a fat man in one go. Take your time, no rush. When he can really transform his life with a thought, his strength will surely undergo another huge transformation. By then, the conventional divine evolution system may not be able to limit his combat power. Moreover, Although his current brain power can record these details, he cannot interpret them in real time, which consumes too much brain power. He has enough self-knowledge that his strength has increased fast enough with the help of his dream talent. In this way, while he endured the huge load brought by the divine initiation, he paid close attention to the details of the transformation of his body. Not only that, due to the Thunder Forging method, his divine initiation efficiency was much faster than the two people around him. About 18 minutes later, Tanyaozu was the first to be unable to bear it and interrupted the initiation. He opened his eyes and saw that Yi Guangzi and Li Yu were still receiving the initiation, with a trace of regret and unwillingness in his eyes. It's a pity that such a good opportunity only gained 18 minutes. He estimated in his mind that in just 18 minutes, he had already condensed 15 divine genes of coordination. If he persisted a little longer and gritted his teeth, wouldn't he have a few more? It was uncomfortable. At the 21st minute, Yi Guangzi withdrew from the initiation and slowly opened his eyes. He glanced at both sides and smiled slightly. Li Yu is longer than me, which is expected. But old Tan, you are so much earlier than me. It seems that you are promoted to the strongest a few days earlier than me, which is not so good. Tanyaozu's mentality has been adjusted at this moment and he admitted defeat. He said indifferently, after all, my foundation was damaged before, and my lifespan was consumed by hundreds of years more than yours, and my vitality is also much worse. Now I am only 2 or 3 minutes slower than you, which is so-so. On the contrary, you, old he, are 100 years younger than me, and you have no loss of vitality, but you are only 3 minutes slower than me. You should feel ashamed. Yi Guangzi's eyebrows jumped. Good fellow, you have said all the good and bad things, right? He did not argue with Tanyaozu, because when he thought about it carefully, it did make sense. Although the two were about the same in strength, Tanyaozu was indeed much weaker in terms of vitality. This time, he won unfairly. How is it? How many divine genes did you generate? Yi Guangzi was still a little reserved. He could not be as carefree as Lu Yansheng and Tanyaozu. He decided to change his mind and provoke Tanyaozu. Tanyaozu, I have 15, and you, since you have persisted for 21 minutes, you must have 17, right? Yi Guangzi smiled slightly. Wrong, I generated 19. Not only can I withstand it longer than you, but my efficiency is also higher than yours. Do you know why? Fuck, Tanyaozu was surprised. Why is my efficiency so high? Yi Guangzi said lightly, because my divine control is better than yours. Although we are both initiations, I can deliberately guide it and complete the boost with delicate and precise operations. This is something you can never do. Fuck, it must be said that Tanyaozu was really envious and jealous. Alice, Laohui, if you hadn't met Li Yi, you would definitely be the best of this generation with your talent. It's a pity that since there's you, there is no Liang. Yi Guangzi was not provoked, and said with a smile, no one can compare with Li Yi. Your hatred is as good as nothing. Look at the speed of Li Yi's divine initiation. We are far behind. While the two chatted and laughed, 28 minutes had passed since everyone began to receive the initiation. Finally, at the 29th minute, Li Yu chose to stop the initiation. So, the liquefied divinity dissipated. Li Yu, who was full of energy and had a stronger body, appeared in front of the two. The two saw Li Yi, who was refreshed and had a change in spirit, and their eyes lit up. Li Yi, have you collected the 81 divine genes required for the 3 cores? Yi Guangzi asked immediately. Li Yi opened his eyes, and the divine light in his eyes flashed, and then he took the initiative to restrain it. He nodded slowly and answered, yes, in fact, the number of divine genes he generated was more than that. After all, he had already generated 74 before 81 was far from his goal. However, he was afraid that the two would be too shocked, so he did not say the specific number. Fuck, what a joke. Tanyaozu was shocked. Li Yi, you haven't officially broken through to the heavenly rank yet. Unlike Yi Guangzi, who had been paying attention to Li Yi for a long time, Tanyaozu did not know that Li Yi had not actually broken through to the heavenly rank. Tanyaozu had always believed that Li Yi had great potential and was a heavenly rank with a fast evolution speed. He created various bodybuilding methods and reached a strength comparable to that of a high-level heavenly rank a long time ago. But he did not expect that Li Yi was still following the route planned by the heavenly god Mecha, and had not officially broken through to the heavenly rank yet. You know, in the battle just now, Li Yi easily defeated the enemy that he needed to explode to withstand. This gap even made Tanyaozu feel confused about what year it was. Li Yu nodded. Tanyaozu said with difficulty, 81 divine genes. If you succeed in the 3-element integration now, won't you become a 9th level heavenly rank right away? If you succeed, won't your strength soar again, and you can beat us, old Tan? You are wrong. Li Yu's strength before has surpassed you and me. Although this is also because of the 100-fold gravity condition, which is more suitable for Li Yu to play, it is undeniable that Li Yu's strength at this moment is comparable to you and me who have just entered the strongest. He Guangzi smiled and said, Li Yu has walked a completely different path, which is difficult for others to learn. You don't have to be too envious. Without Li Yu's talent, others may not be able to condense 81 divine genes before the heavenly rank before they die. This is also the truth. Without breaking through the heavenly rank, accumulating divine genes, lifespan will not soar after all. Many people try this route, and they may not be able to gather enough until they die, and they can't become as strong as Li Yi. Li Yi, tell me honestly, how many divine genes did you generate just now? Tanyaozu couldn't help asking. Chapter 397, Spiritualization. Only 22, Li Yi thought about it and said when he saw Tanyaozu asking this. In fact, he naturally had more than this number. But considering that the number was too shocking, he still cut off a part of it and did not say the whole thing. After all, this initiation can generate a total amount equivalent to 1 divine nucleus. How can it not be shocking? At this moment, the total number of his divine genes has reached an astonishing 101. From the previous 74, it has increased by 27 in one go. At this moment, if he generates another 7, he will have a total amount equivalent to 4 divine nuclei. It is a big step away from his minimum goal of 9 and the big goal of 12. The progress is not bad. Among them, the divine genes of the Thunder God sequence are in excess, equivalent to 1.3. It needs to be completed later to reach a complete 2. Otherwise, some of the extra divine genes will disrupt his plan. He still takes the comprehensive path and does not seek specialization in the divine sequence. Because of his divine fighting skills and perfect divine control, he can completely control multiple sequences of divine will and has strength far beyond others. By the way, he now has a large base of 101 divine genes. Apart from anything else, his shortcoming in the total amount of divinity has also been caught up. Combined with the physical reserves obtained in the Infinite Spire, the current total amount should be equivalent to the 5th stage of the heavenly position. After all, he has not yet started the 3-element integration, and cannot integrate so many divine genes, nor has he undergone the sublimation of the divine nucleus. The few gaps in the middle are just filled by the extra 20 divine genes. Who knows? Facing Li Yi's statement, Tanyaozu did not believe it. He narrowed his eyes and said, Who are you trying to fool? Your fighting skills and divine control skills are higher than ours, and you have persisted longer. The speed of divine infusion just now is faster than mine and Laohi. Laohi can get 19, I think you must have at least 24, right? Li Yi smiled and said, After all, my experience in generating divine genes is not as good as yours, so I wasted a lot of divinity in the past. Really? Tanyaozu was suspicious. He Guangzi reached out and touched Tanyaozu, saying, Stop talking about these idle times, the 3rd level should be here. Sure enough, as soon as He Guangzi finished speaking, the scene in front of everyone changed. From above the meteor group, he suddenly adjusted the battlefield perspective and came to the middle of the Beishianwei blood battlefield. At the same time, 3 more heroic and fierce armored men appeared in front of everyone. Just by the momentum, everyone knew that the strength of these 3 new armored men was better. Apart from other things, just looking at their movements, using the divinity in various parts of their bodies at will, and their agile postures like swimming dragons, we can know that they are extremely extraordinary. At least they have one more skill that is guaranteed to be perfect than the 100 god guards who used only their physical bodies before. A grand voice slowly said, Please use pure divinity to defeat the 100 god guards of the same level. You can only fail 3 times in this level. If you fail more than 3 times, you will be eliminated directly. As soon as the voice fell, the 3 people felt their bodies suddenly sink. As if they were pressed down by something like a mountain. Is this 200 times gravity? Waving his arms, Li Yi found that his speed had dropped again, and he could not make any movements that were invisible to the naked eye. On the contrary, the divinity suddenly let go of the restraints and became active. He Guangzi nodded, It seems that this is what is called defeating the opponent with pure divinity. Since our speed of attack is limited, we can basically not rely on the power of the physical body. After all, Compared with a physical body, the divinity is hard to be restrained by 1 or 200 times the gravity. For the physical body of the strongest, 200 times the gravity can effectively suppress the mobilization of various organs and blood in the body. The most typical example is the heart. At this time, the heart must have the kinetic energy of a high-speed engine to pump blood into the brain and into various parts of the body to provide basic energy for physical activities. Even if you give the strongest a thing weighing more than 10 tons to lift, the load is far less than the comprehensive suppression of the physical body by this gravity. After all, one is at most the consumption of mechanical lever force, while the other is equivalent to no dead angle, deeper consumption, suppression of all cells in the body. Hula, hula. The three armored men moved forward slowly, each surrounded by a divine dragon. When they got closer, they found that these divine dragons still contained sufficient divine will, like a finishing touch, turning the already lifelike divine dragons into living creatures, very fierce. The three looked at each other, and all of them felt uneasy. Judging from the state of the opponent playing with divinity, this is probably a divine manipulation skill that is more terrifying than the perfect level. Among the three, Li Yi and He Guangzi are both perfect, while Tenyaozu is just a step away from perfection and is in a state of being able to break through at any time. The difference is that Li Yi's perfection is that all the divinity sequences under his hands have reached perfection. Except for the insufficient total amount of divinity, in theory, how to match the combination of divinity and characteristics, the combat power increase is much greater than that of the two. He Guangzi's perfection is mainly the perfection of the Thunder God sequence. As for other auxiliary divinities and characteristics, they are mainly at the mastery level, or a little worse. After all, they don't have the ability of Li Yi to absorb parallel memory fragments every day. It is amazing that they can reach such a level in just 1 or 200 years. He Guangzi observed for a moment and said in a deep voice, "Be careful, these guys, maybe their divine manipulation skills are all at the level of refining gods, or even at the level of endowing spirits. The level of divine manipulation above perfection is refining gods, and above that is endowing spirits, and finally the realm of divine intentions. In the realm of refining gods, divine intentions can be extracted from pure divinity as a means of improving attack power. In the realm of endowing spirits, divine intentions can be used to endow divinity with a part of spirituality, so that it has basic combat wisdom and is difficult to erase. This step is equivalent to the core technology of the fourth era, artificial souls. Although the level of wisdom created is like artificial soul technology, the spirituality endowed by the realm of endowing spirits is far superior to artificial souls in terms of stubbornness and tenacity. Although He Guangzi is only at the level of perfection, over the years, through the information in various ruins and with the help of other methods, he has understood some of the means of refining gods and can extract some of the divine intentions. However, due to incomplete extraction, it can only consume time to slowly accumulate divine intentions, and generally it will not be used, and it is only kept as a bottom-line means. Tenyaozu also has a way to refine the divine will, but it is also a wild way, basically not strong, and far from the divine will realm. The divine will realm is the realm that all skills will reach after reaching the pinnacle. For example, after Li Yi's fighting skills reached the pinnacle, he also understood the divine will realm. But he reached the divine will realm with fighting skills. Now under the force of 200 times gravity, the power of the subtle force has decreased a lot. Even if the divine will can be driven, the power will be sharply reduced. Li Yi tried to use the gravitational characteristics to offset the gravity suppression, but found that it was completely unacceptable. This suppression actually eliminates the means of using gravity to repel. It seems that this wave can only try to find her way with the divine skills. Li Yi frowned. Tenyaozu also shouted, "The competition of divine skills is not purely a standing and fighting method. Let's move." Li Yi and He Guangzi had no objections and began to run. This heavy body is indeed very laborious to run. At the same time, the three armored men in front shook their wrists, and 3 divine dragons had already pounced out. AWW. With a fierce roar, a divine dragon followed Li Yi and entangled him at an astonishing speed. Li Yi was suppressed by gravity at this moment, and his speed dropped too much, and he couldn't flash away directly for a while. He could only use his own predictive ability to observe the signs of the divine dragon's activities. His body suddenly pounced forward, and the deformation characteristics were activated, turning into a thin sheet, sliding out from the gap between the dragon's body. The action at this moment was extremely thrilling. If he made a mistake, he would be hurt by the divine dragon's divine will on the outer layer of its skin. However, Liu finally slid out of the encirclement of the divine dragon. The divine dragon roared from its head, opened its mouth and sprayed out a sharpened divine mist, which was about to cover Liu in the blink of an eye. Liu narrowed his eyes, and the lightning characteristics in his arms were constantly stimulated, guiding the countless lightning forces stored in his cells, and constantly strengthening his arms. Then, he punched forward through the air. Boom! Driven by the divine will of the Thunder God sequence, the amazing lightning power also turned into a lifelike lightning snake, which suddenly knocked away the sharpened mist in front and rushed towards the divine dragon. At the moment of collision, the collision of lightning and divinity brought a lot of explosions and vibrations. Liu knew that the spirituality given to the Thunder God by his divine will was insufficient, and this blow was not enough to erase the spirituality of the divine dragon. He immediately turned around and leaped towards the armored man who was controlling the divine dragon in the air on the other side. Although this level requires defeating the opponent with divinity, it does not mean that physical means cannot be used in the process. Since the Enlightenment Mountain has suppressed the physical body, it means that any tricks played by the physical body in this situation are also within a reasonable range. Bang! The divine dragon pierced through the divine thunder snake that Liu had shot out, and pounced behind him. Liu, as if he had eyes behind him, made a fake move to the left, and after tricking the divine dragon, the super elasticity of his legs was activated, and he bounced him to the front of the armored man like a spring. He raised his hand and punched it, and smashed it down. Under the same gravity conditions, the speed of both sides was certainly weakened, but Liu still had an amazing ability to predict. After this punch, the armored man raised his hand to block it, but he didn't expect Liu to use a fast and slow punch. First fast and then slow, accurately penetrated a gap between the armored man's arms, and hit the armored man's chin armor. Bang! Slightly trembling. This blow penetrated his divine shield, but did not break the enemy's armor. However, when Liu rebounded slightly, he accurately grasped the material structure of the opponent's armor. It should be a snowflake material with a purity of 35%. This kind of material is generally the armor material of A-level mecha. Liu had already grasped the subtle structural defects. Immediately, he threw another punch. Boom! With this punch, he once again used fast and slow punches to deceive the opponent's defense gap, penetrated his divine shield, and hit the armor on the head of the armored man. Bang! The armored man's face armor shattered into irregular pieces, 2 pieces fell to the ground, and several pieces remained on his face. On his face, there were still green muscle fibers, bundled up, without the cover, showing a hideous look. The armored man's eyes flashed with a fierce divine light, and he punched Liu. With this punch, the divinity swept like a dragon, roaring at an astonishing speed. Although Liu noticed it, he was limited by the speed and could not continue to rush forward, so he could only keep retreating. Behind him, another divine dragon rushed up. At this moment, Liu was attacked from both sides. The armored man showed a cold smile. Liu was hit by 2 divine dragons. Boom! The fierce divine flame flashed suddenly, and the surrounding air was pushed by the huge divine power, and a large vacuum appeared. A white line flew out. Whoosh! The white line was very fast and small in shape, and soon passed through the amazing flames brought by the collision of the divine dragon. The armored man's face moved, raised his hand and pushed again, shooting out 4 divine dragons, and rushed towards the white line. Obviously, he also found that Liu was not injured in the previous 2 waves of divine collisions, but instead transformed into white lines with a very small force surface and escaped. These several divine dragons are larger and more flexible. Obviously, the armored man is also serious. In the blink of an eye, the 2 sides started another round of chase. Liu kept transforming, or into a long line, or into a thin sheet, or into a large net, constantly dodging the divine attack of the armored man. Now that his total amount of divinity has increased sharply, all kinds of techniques that were originally unable to change themselves at a high frequency are now used. For a while, a relative balance was maintained. It's a pity. If I can practice the body of the Thunder God, I'm afraid it will be enough to break through, or I can use the divine control to fight against the strong and eliminate his advantage. Then I will kill him directly with my subtle power. While dodging, Liu thought about the strategy in his heart, feeling a little regretful. Just now, he took advantage of the chaos to hit the armored man twice, and he had already found the opponent's weakness. But the armored man obviously also realized the danger of being close to Li Yi, and in turn took advantage of his advantage in divine control and kept hitting from a distance. Once he found that Li Yi was approaching again, he exploded rapidly, forcing Li Yi to control the distance and stay away. At present, if you want to defeat the opponent without injury, you can either carefully observe the opponent's divine control method, break through the divine control skills, use divinity against divinity, and complete the counter kill. Or, you can practice the prototype of the Thunder God's body into complete version, turn into lightning, and complete the close range at an astonishing speed. Of course, even if there is no complete version, if it can be relatively mature, it may be okay. As his mind flashed, Li Yu made a judgment and found that the latter method was more efficient. Immediately, he began to increase the lightning characteristics and the movement of lightning power in his cells while transforming and dodging. For a while, lightning flashed frequently on the field, and crackling sound shook. Chapter 398 Absorption. Not only Li Yu was in a tough battle, the other two were in an even more difficult situation. The two of them basically played all their trump cards, and used all kinds of heavenly combo skills. Ninefold coordinated action, 3-stage attack of reverse entropy, thunder and lightning and thunder, all kinds of tricks, all kinds of means. Relying on these heavenly tricks that have been tempered for thousands of times, their combat performance is better than the previous level. Obviously, compared with physical combat, they are still better at using all kinds of divinity and characteristics to practice kung fu. For a while, all kinds of amazing flames flashed continuously on the battle group, and the brightness was amazing. Fortunately, these three armored people have never used characteristic combos like heavenly and strongest tricks. I don't know if they don't know how to use them, or they can't use them. However, although the armored people did not use all kinds of combo skills, they relied on the exquisite control of the level of spiritualization to suppress everyone. In a blink of an eye, 7 minutes of fighting on the field had passed. The divinity of the crowd was also being consumed under such a high-intensity load, and it seemed that they could not maintain the situation of frequent tricks for long. Li Yi, on his side, continuously used the deformation characteristics and the divine will of the Thunder God sequence, sometimes turning into a white line, moving around, and sometimes stimulating amazing lightning, constantly resonating with the lightning power in his body, and finding the slightest opportunity to transform his body into lightning. In his mind, he was also repeatedly pondering the so-called prototype of the Thunder God's body that Guangxi had seen before, and experiencing the wonderful experience coming from his arm. Obviously, he was very close to this slight opportunity. However, because the speed of the armored man's divine dragon was too fast, he needed to allocate a lot of attention to predict the direction of the 4 divine dragons. Therefore, although he persisted, he still achieved little. Compared with the current intensity of the battle, this guessing speed was still too slow. Finally, in the 21st minute, boom! Tanyaozu was directly hit by the divine dragon, leaving a fist-sized blood hole in his chest, and his body fell backwards. Even if the heart was pierced, the strongest body could still maintain life. But the blood hole was not small, and this was an environment with 200 times the gravity. Therefore, at the moment the blood hole was hit, the power of divine will carried by the divinity rushed up and invaded Tanyaozu's body. At the same time, a large amount of blood was violently pulled down by the gravitational potential energy at the fractures of the blood hole, drawing a small parabola like a heavy hammer, and then splashed heavily on the ground. Tanyaozu flew back for more than 10 meters before he stopped the bleeding, and granulation tissue grew at the blood hole, constantly sealing the blood loss. The degree of serious injury exceeds 40%, and your challenge is over, a loud voice sounded. Tanyaozu twisted his body, and a circular force field swirled around him, bringing the power of leaping. Everyone took the time to glance over and found that Tanyaozu had been teleported away by a strange force. Following Tanyaozu, Guangxi and Li Yu were defeated in the 25th and 31st minutes and were teleported away. Among them, Guangxi took the initiative to use his ultimate move, the Thunderbolt, but was offset by the divine dragon of the armored man. The consumption of divinity was too high, and he was directly judged as a loser by the Grand Voice, but he did not suffer any serious damage. As for Li Yi, he has been maneuvering to figure out and try the body of the Thunder God. Unfortunately, his total amount of divinity is not as good as the previous two. Even if he occasionally uses the means of the flesh to narrow the gap and control the consumption, Such a high-intensity battle dragged on for half an hour and finally consumed it. In a normal combat environment, he would not consume so fast. However, the hidden suppression in this place is very deep, and he is not immune. Swish! Li Yu was teleported away by this teleportation force. When he opened his eyes again, he found that he had returned to the teleportation position where he entered the trial area before. He Guangzi sat cross-legged on one side, frowning, and it seemed that he was reviewing the previous battle. Tan Yaozu, on the other hand, sat on the side, carefully recovering from his injuries. The blood hole on Tan Yaozu's chest was still there and had not recovered yet. Li Yu leaned down to take a look and found that the blood hole on Tan Yaozu's chest was a penetrating wound with a diameter of 14 centimeters. Standing in front, people could see through the blood hole and see what was behind Tan Yaozu. "Brother Tan, how is your injury?" "It's so-so." Tan Yaozu raised his eyelids, his eyeballs turned, and found Li Yu's figure. "Sorry, I'm a drag. If it weren't for me, your situation wouldn't have collapsed so quickly." He Guangzi shook his head and said, "You think too much? We are all fighting alone. After you were teleported out, your opponent was also teleported away." Tan Yaozu was stunned. He was busy recovering just now, but he didn't confirm the situation with He Guangzi in the first time. Li Yu said, "It's okay to fail this time. We still have 2 more chances to challenge. We can regroup and challenge again later. Besides, I have gained something from this battle. I believe that as long as we are well prepared, we may have a chance to win next time." He Guangzi nodded and said, "Yes, although their divine control skills are far superior to ours, we can also hone our skills by fighting with these masters. Apart from anything else, I just had some vague inspiration and was about to seize the opportunity to break through to the perfection of divine control." Li Yu's eyes lit up. "Brother He, are you sure you can break through to the realm of refining the spirit?" "Almost. I have some experience. Let's recuperate for a day today and challenge again the next day, how about it?" "That's what I mean." Li Yu nodded. Tan Yaozu smiled and said, "Then I have to do my best to heal my wounds. Fortunately, I am the strongest body now. If it were before, even if I didn't die from such a blood hole, I would have to spend 2 months recuperating." The 3 of them talked briefly, sat down cross-legged, and began to mobilize various means to recover. Li Yu pondered for a while and went directly into the dream plane. After the battle just now, he had at least 2 types of skill fragments that could be brushed out. One is the divine manipulation skills of the refining God realm or even the soul endowing realm. When his dream plane reached a certain level, it was impossible to create something out of nothing. He must have a certain basis for speculation to generate the corresponding memory fragments. Before, even if he knew that the divine manipulation skills had a higher level, he couldn't imagine what it was like. He had to find a chance or see a direct reference object to speculate. Therefore, this time, after seeing the divine manipulation skills of the armored man, he would definitely generate corresponding memory fragments. The other type is the corresponding memory fragments of the Thunder God's body. Because he had accidentally touched the prototype, he only needed to speculate and reproduce the process of how he practiced a prototype of the Thunder God's body to brush out the corresponding memory fragments. In the dream plane, he searched and indeed found the 2 expected memory fragments, and was slightly happy. Find the memory fragments related to the Thunder God's body, hold it, and absorb it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 399, Thunder. As Li Yi integrated the target memory fragment into his body, he soon felt a lot of corresponding memories about using the Thunder God body. This piece of memory was the means of operating the Thunder God body to the feet in the parallel world. However, the Thunder God body is a very complicated skill. After Li Yi absorbed this part of the memory, he estimated in his mind and judged that he was still a long way from mastering this part of the skill. It seems that if I want to transform my physical body into lightning, I still need a long period of practice. Well, maybe I have to waste a week. As for now, maybe I should settle for the second best, from complete mastery to the instant transformation into lightning. In this way, my consumption and the requirements for comprehensive proficiency will be lighter. In the dream plane, Li Yu's eyes flickered and he fell into thought. After a moment, he found another memory fragment and integrated it into his body. The new one is a partial memory about the transformation of internal organs into giant state. And this part is obviously a more difficult part. The internal organs are equivalent to the power engine system of the physical body. The heart is the core of the engine, the stomach is the energy factory, and the kidneys and liver are the core of the waste and wastewater circulation. Every internal organ is related to the basic operation of the human body. Although the strongest body can already survive for a long time without the operation of the organs. But it is impossible to separate for a long time. If you want to transform into lightning without destroying the balance of the human body, you must complete the transformation as soon as possible. If part of the body is successfully transformed and part of the body fails, it will become a flaw and be hit accurately by the enemy. According to the stage, the brain is the most difficult to transform into lightning, followed by the internal organs, blood vessels and meridians, and muscles. On the contrary, the bone structure is simple, and as long as the divinity is sufficient, it can be easily transformed. If you want to pursue speed, I can use the deformation characteristics to transform the internal organs and the brain for a few seconds, and then change back. In this way, I can exert the speed of lightning in a shorter time. Li Yu calculated in his mind and continued to absorb memory fragments. In a blink of an eye, a day passed quietly. At this moment, the blood hole in Tanyaozu's chest has been repaired. The divine power in the blood hole was quite strong, so Tanyaozu used up some of his accumulated divine power to offset it. The divine power of this armored man is quite strong, and I have something that I am very concerned about. Everyone woke up from their recovery state and looked at Tanyaozu, who was speaking. What do you care about? Guangzixu observed Tanyaozu and found that his breath had been fully restored and his state was also full of energy. Tanyaozu said, aren't you surprised? The divinity and divine will of these three armored men are all attributeless and unordered, but their divine will is very corrosive, like a sacrificial altar, difficult to erase. Do you know that I need to spend at least 5 portions of the same divine will to wear it out? Guangzi frowned and said, a 5-to-1 offset ratio? Such a big difference? Li Yu recalled some of the memory fragments he had absorbed before, and pondered, this is because their divinity has been endowed with divine will, so in the confrontation of divine will, 1 portion of divine will can play an effect comparable to 5 portions of divine will. Guangzi nodded and said, most of the time, it seems that we need to be more cautious next time. It is better to be exhausted and eliminated than to be injured and eliminated. This will not only consume our foundation, but also waste our time. If we cannot challenge here, we can still find other ways out, Tanyaozu said. Let's not talk about whether we get hurt or not. What I mean is, if their divine will is so powerful and their divine control is so exquisite, and the 3 of us have only been through 1 day, and even if our strength has improved a little, it won't be much. How can we break the impasse? As he said that, he looked at Guangzi. Old he, didn't you say that you have found an opportunity to break through the divine control skills? Have you made a breakthrough? I have accomplished my mission. Guangzi nodded. Although there is still the problem of proficiency, I can already refine divine will at any time, and the efficiency is at least several times faster than before. Combined with my heavenly tricks, I should have a chance to defeat the armored man. Tanyaozu looked at Li Yi. Li Yu nodded slightly. I have mastered new tricks and I am confident that I can defeat the armored man in this level. Tanyaozu said with shame, will I be a drag again? I spent all my time recovering from my injuries the day before and had no time to practice new tricks. Guangzi smiled and said, it doesn't matter, old Tan, you have already exploded in the last level, which bought us enough time. In this level, I will try to defeat the opponent as soon as possible and help you. Tanyaozu waved his hand and said, goodbye, it's better to rely on Li Yu than on you. I think Li Yu must be confident. As for you, old he, it is likely that you are just pretending to be strong. Listen to what you just said, your proficiency is still a problem, and there is a chance to defeat. When I heard these 2 words, I knew that you have to try your best to defeat the armored man. The corner of Guangzi's mouth twitched, but he didn't refute. Li Yu laughed. Then should we postpone it for another half a day, or go in directly? Tanyaozu and Guangzi looked at each other and saw the embarrassment in each other's eyes. Let's do it for another half day. We can practice as much as we can. Half a day later, the 3 of them re-entered the transmission area. Swish! A burst of strange power came, and the 3 of them re-entered the trial area. In a blink of an eye, the scene outside had switched to that meteor shower. A loud voice came directly, the second challenge of the 3rd level, Please defeat the 100 god guards with pure divinity. As soon as the voice fell, the 300 god guards swiped out, walked forward side by side, and approached the crowd. Li Yu was eager to try. After a day and a half of rapid absorption, he had mastered the transformation of the thunder god body in the limbs, torso, blood vessels and meridians, muscle tissue, bones and other parts of the body. But he has not yet learned the core parts such as the internal organs and brain. There are many details involved in this part, and he estimated that it would take at least a few more days of digestion and absorption. At present, the method he adopted was naturally to use the deformation characteristics as a substitute. Although this is slightly slower and has defects, it can still become a classic killer move for now. The current persistence time is about 5 to 10 seconds. The reason for this range is that the amount of divinity consumed in different battle scenes is also different. Everyone, I'll go first. Li Yu narrowed his eyes slightly and saw that the armored man in front had already shot the divine dragon. The lightning power in his body continued to gather, and the surface of his skin showed a slight blue fluorescence. The next moment, the deformation feature was activated. With a crackling sound, his body instantly turned into a flash of lightning, passing over the divine dragon and hitting the opponent directly. Chapter 400 Extreme Speed. At this moment, Li Yu was incredibly fast. Not only was he fast, but he also created a time difference, taking the opponent by surprise and showing the magic of surprise attack. After a face-to-face encounter, he came in front of the opponent's armored man, got close to him, restored his original form, and punched the armored man's chin with the power of the divine explosion spiral. He had previously calculated the nano-precision gap of the armored man, and sent the power of the explosion spiral into it with a force of 50 nanometers. Bang! With a loud bang, the armored man's facial armor broke directly. Immediately afterwards, Li Yu's fist turned into lightning, gathered the divine will of the thunder god, and drilled into the armored man's head. According to the requirements, the opponent must be defeated with divinity. Therefore, after completing the defense, Li Yu did not continue to attack with his physical body, but used the divine will, combined with his own prototype of the thunder god's body, and injected all the divine will of lightning into it. Boom! The amazing lightning flashed, and the surrounding environment was as bright as day. The armored man's body trembled violently and bounced back. The damage has exceeded 30%, and the wound is determined to be successful. A loud voice sounded, and the armored man disappeared immediately. Behind Li Yi, Tan Yaozu and He Guangzi had not yet started to act. At this moment, they were a little shocked to see Li Yi defeat the enemy so neatly. In just 1.5 days, the progress has been so amazing. And what happened to the thunderbolt just now? Has the body of the thunder god been trained? Just as they were wondering, the two heard Li Yu laugh and said, "My battle is over. This is a team battle. They can't bully the few with their numbers, but we can. Brother Tan, let's work together to kill another one." He couldn't hide his happiness in his heart. This body of the thunder god has only been mastered halfway, but it has such an amazing speed. It's really amazing. Although this is also because he actually has good control, high predictive ability, and picked an opportunity to complete the feat of killing with 2 hits. But the effect in actual combat should be no less than Hengser's body of the thunder god. Next, due to Li Yi's amazing performance, the remaining 2 battles were completed very smoothly. With the help of Li Yi, Tan Yaozu's opponent was also defeated within 10 moves. As for the remaining He Guangzi, his divine control skills broke through to the level of refining the spirit, and he could extract divine will at any time. Combined with the ultimate moves of the heavenly position, he fought with the armored man for more than 70 moves before he was able to defeat him. Li Yu wanted to help, but He Guangzi refused. He was determined to refine his divine will. After the battle was over, a loud voice came out. "Congratulations, you have completed the trial at a relatively fast speed. Since you have consumed a trial opportunity, the battle evaluation is medium, and you can get a divine penetration reward. The time of this penetration will be determined by each person's combat contribution and each person's tolerance." What a pity, it's just divine penetration. Hearing this, the 3 were slightly disappointed. He Guangzi said regretfully, "It seems that we met last time." The 3 began to activate the divinity and guide the divine penetration. Hualala. As the divinity was activated, 3 liquid divinities emerged above the heads of the 3 people and slowly injected into everyone's body. It can be seen that the liquefied divinity on Li Yi's head is obviously the thickest and largest, like a large piece of mercury the size of a house. The next is Guangzi, which is about the size of a toilet, and Tangyaozu is equivalent to half a toilet. When the three saw the scale of the liquefied divinity above their heads, they immediately understood that the so-called battle contribution of the Grand Voice was to directly allocate the corresponding total amount of divinity to see how much can be absorbed. Tangyaozu's face flushed slightly, and he also knew that he had embarrassed himself several times this time, so he silently absorbed the divinity penetration. Guangzi glanced at Tangyaozu, smiled slightly, and began to guide the power of this batch of divinity penetration. This time, Li Yi still chose the divinity penetration of the Thor sequence. His current Thor sequence is equivalent to completing 1.3 cores, that is, the number of 27 plus 10. If the next wave of high divinity penetration can be effectively used, there is hope that the gap can be directly filled by half. Closing his eyes, Li Yi directly launched the 3.2 burst skill to expand a body's efficiency in accommodating divinity. At the same time, with a microscopic precision of 50 nanometers, the body was vibrated from the inside to the outside, and the secondary optimized thunder forging method was used to improve the efficiency of attracting this batch of divinity. Unlike the initiation, the amount of divinity penetration is less and the penetration depth is far less. Therefore, if you want to make good use of the divinity penetration, it will take longer and more time. In a blink of an eye, time passed quietly as the three people received the divinity penetration. More than half an hour later, the liquefied divinity on Tangyaozu's head was exhausted. He opened his eyes with a look of regret. It's a pity that the divinity penetration is still too gentle and the amount is too small compared to the divinity initiation. It took more time than before, but only 4 new divinity genes were added this time. Another half an hour later, Guangzi woke up. There was still some liquefied divinity on his head that had not been used up, but he had reached his limit and had to get out of this state. How is it, oldie? How many have you increased? Guangzi shook his head and said, only 8. Although these 8 can at least save me 10 years of hard work, it is still less after all. Tangyaozu sighed. It would be great if we humans could master this technology of divine penetration. In this way, we can increase our divine genes every day, and becoming a demigod is not a dream. The reason why he did not talk about quasi-gods is naturally because after becoming a demigod, the focus of cultivation is no longer based on divine genes. The foundation after demigods lies in the will of God. Although there has been no demigod among humans, this can be known from various materials. Guangzi glanced at Tangyaozu and said speechlessly, Old Tan, I understand why you have such a good coordination characteristic, but you still play to the point of almost exhausting your vitality. No, what do you mean? Tangyaozu looked at Guangzi. Guangzi shrugged and said, I mean, how can you be so naive? Even if you can master the technique of divine penetration, if your soul is not strong enough, your growth will become slower and slower, until the soul and the divine gene are out of balance and collapse. The reason why we can still grow so much now is only because we have just advanced to the strongest. Our souls have transformed, and we have a lot of soul surplus. Tangyaozu's heart moved slightly, and he didn't care about Guangzi's ridicule, and asked, what you said makes sense, but what about Li Yi? He has also increased a lot, right? Li Yi's surplus was at least 30 before, and now his physical body has grown so much, his soul must have also increased. This increase is probably nothing to him, Guangzi said lightly. That's true. Tangyaozu was embarrassed, then he sighed with empty eyes. Alice, I'm old, not as good as a young man like you, and my brain doesn't work as well. Guangzi, haha, you are only 100 years older than me, there's no need to take advantage of your age. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours passed, and the liquid divinity above Li Yi's had finally dissipated. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.